What is up, RotoGrinders? Happy Wednesday, happy hump day. Wednesday, the day for humping and for baseball. It's a 10-game, as of right now, a 10-game slate on DraftKings. We're going to mostly focus on DraftKings. FanDuel did some goofy stuff, and they have an early slates, and they chopped it up multiple ways, and they're talking about Texas and Cincinnati. We're going to mostly ignore that game. We're going to mostly ignore FanDuel. By all means, if you have any FanDuel-specific questions, feel free to fire them off in the chats. Kindly hit that like button. Do subscribe. Do turn on those notifications. We're here taking you all the way up to lock. Myself, Stevie TPFL, for the next hour and 20 minutes or so until crunch time comes rolling in. We got Chief Meteorologist Kevin Roth. Roth is going to be clutch today. He's super important. I did go ahead and drop. He's always important, but today especially did drop the weather report, Roth's weather report, in the chat over at the YouTube. Stevie, we officially have an orange. Orange is, that's when things get scary. Straight orange in St. Louis. Los Angeles at St. Louis, straight orange, which means things are dicey. And they're also dicey, I guess a tick less. And this stuff can change. It's fluid. And Roth is on top of it. He'll update it, verbally when he comes on in an hour and change in Chicago, Minnesota, and the White Sox, orange, yellow. So we're on alert. We're on weather alert today. How are things? Happy Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, things are good. Baseball season. Gosh, we love baseball. So
sure.
Yeah, good time of the year because, we have baseball, NASCAR going. We're getting into NBA playoffs. We got the Final Four coming up with my Gators. I'm in a good mood, I was tweeting out, drinking some green tea, and got, one of my favorite green teas this morning. So, yeah, I'm in a good mood.
You have a favorite green tea. Amongst all the options. Getting lineups, so they're going to be getting one throughout the show, and day game after night day. A day game after night games, we're going to be seeing a lot of players, not a lot of players, but more so than most. Some players taking a seat. Just got the Blue Jays. A lot of times you get the catchers resting on the day game. Alejandro Kirk is not in the Toronto lineup. A lot of backup catchers on a Wednesday afternoon. Bichette, Guerrero, Santander, Jimenez, Springer, Clement, Schneider, Hanneman, and Miles Straw, the punchless Straw, batting ninth. I did see Bart was out for Pittsburgh, so was McCutchen. A lot of times you see the old vets sitting on the day game as well. Vinny P is back for Kansas City for what it's worth. Back for the Royals. This slate goes all the way up to 4 and change, so we may or may not have all the lineups. Probably not as the slate starts, but projected lineups are generally pretty good. We were talking about this pre-show, Stevie, and we'll have the conversation. I don't know how important the game is, especially when it comes to pitching. We're at that point, where a lot of teams are at that same sort of spot where you're going to have all the ones pitching and all the twos pitching. Eventually, this will shuffle up as the season progresses, and teams get on their own specific track. But man, it feels like opportunity cost is a monster conversation today as far as pitchers. There are a slew of aces taking the bump today, and you best not miss. It's kind of like what I'm getting at, and the prices are pretty good too. Like, it's not that hard. I think early in the season prices are pretty soft. I feel like some of these guys are going to be, more expensive as the season progresses. Like Pepio at 7.2 is like a cheapie. I think some of these guys are going to get up like $1,000 more. Skeens and Scooble are just $10K, which seems kind of cheap. Eventually, we do the normal salary cap. You can't necessarily, I guess you can, but we'll have that conversation. Double barrel the elite aces. But I'm curious your thoughts overall for this slate. It's I'm prioritizing pitching and picking on the bad pitchers. That's super obvious, right? There's not a lot of bad pitchers, but there's some bad ones, or potentially bad ones, some early, I guess, unknowns that we're not really sure about. There's some incompletes out there. Like Sean Burke may actually be good. He looked good in his first start, and good for him. Easton Lucas, there's some random names out there, but the pitching is really, really good, and I'm prioritizing it. I'm curious your thoughts overall, how we're attacking this slate.
Yeah, so I think pitching obviously very important on any slate. When it comes to baseball, I feel like if you do 90% of your research with pitchers, if you spend 90% of your time on looking at the pitcher data, it's going to tell you what you need to do with the bats too. So I think pitching is always where it's important on these slates. I mean, I think it's Scoble and Skeens at the top, 1A, 1B. I prefer Scoble over Skeens because he's going to be a little bit lower owned, it looks like here, with early projected ownership run. So, and I mean, Seattle is a team that we picked on a lot with left-handed pitching last year. We picked on them earlier this year with Springs. So, yeah, I mean, they're both really good. They both have a huge ceiling. But the fact that we're getting Scoble at almost, I mean, it's like 13 to 15% difference in ownership. I think that's enough for me to be very interested in Scoble over Skeens with how much Seattle struggles with lefties. So, like both of those guys, I mean, Dylan Cease has a little bit tougher matchup here going up against Cleveland. You know, they do have a lot more strikeouts in the bottom half of this lineup than they have in years past.
Nolan Jones.
Yeah, I mean, Nolan Jones is in there. Bo Naylor's a huge strikeout guy. Sheeman is another guy that strikes out a ton, assuming that he'll be in there righty-lefty. So Manzardo has power, but he strikes out a bunch. So it's not your typical like Cleveland lineup that we're so used to over the last few years. Like top half, really good, low strikeouts, but the bottom half going to present a lot of upside to pitchers. So I don't even want to think like taking Dylan Cease out of my pool. He's definitely somebody I'm going to use today in larger entry stuff. So Castillo, Detroit, love that. Obviously, you got to get past like Kerry Carpenter and Riley Green, but Luis Castillo is in a great spot. So we go from yesterday where we had, you know, a handful of guys that we were like kind of questionable about till today where we have, I mean, 4 legit really good pitchers. Freddie Peralta against Kansas City, who's off to a really cold start. Pablo Lopez against the White Sox. That lineup looks atrocious. And then you get the cheaper guys. So, yeah, I mean, I'm very interested in 2 of these cheap guys. But as far as the top-end guys, it's Scoble, Skeens, then probably Cease for me.
Yeah, you mentioned yesterday King had 11 strikeouts versus Cleveland. And I guess one more guy you didn't mention, Lane Thomas. You mentioned Lane Thomas, another guy, strikes out a fair bit. They traded for him last year at midseason. We kind of focused on that on the show yesterday, talking about Cleveland's lineup. Historically, really, really good as far as a contact team, and really strong up top. You know, J-Ram and Kwan and Santana. But besides that, pretty vulnerable to strikeouts as well. And a lot of it's predicated, like you said, as far as lineups, different lineups, the day game after the night games. Did just get the Angels. That one seems like the diciest of games to potentially play. Again, I went ahead and dropped this in the YouTube. I'll go ahead and drop it again if you guys. It's free, just so you know. You don't have to have a RG Premium. Roth has got you covered. If you want Weather Edge, that's something you got to pay for. But as far as the specific, the colors, if it's orange is scary. The scariest is red, so we're not officially in red. So Roth's not in like full panic mode, but he does say, I'll go ahead and read the blurb for those that are not clicking. Yikes. I don't know about this one. It looks like heavy rain from the late morning through most of the afternoon. This could require a very lengthy late start or a postpone. Great hitting weather if they do play. And then orange yellow again for the White Sox and Minnesota. And like you kind of sort of said, like, if those games go, if they don't go, I'm not really concerning myself with it pitching wise. I don't feel like I need, whatever. If things were clean, I guess you can consider guys like Sonny Gray, who was good his first start, despite I had some concerns is spring training stuff, his offseason stuff. He was ill, but he was actually pretty good his first start. I don't think I need it today, but maybe he could be fine. But I don't think it's worth worrying about because there's this slate is absolutely loaded. I could just play Ryan Pepiot, who's he's actually cheaper than Sonny Gray, and he I think is a really good pitcher. And then Minnesota versus Chicago. Lopez is a good pitcher. We want to pick on Chicago, but I don't know how much I need those as far as risk versus reward. We'll have that conversation as the show progresses. Angels lineup, by the way, Ward, if they do play, Ward, Rengifo, Trout, Soler, Moncada, Chanel, Ohapi, Adele's in there today, and Lopez doing the short stopping.
So really quick, just like thoughts on the weather in general. So the Cardinals are off. I think they're off until Friday or Saturday. I know they don't play tomorrow.
They can't get 2 days off, can they?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they have 2 days off. I
2
don't think
days
they
off in
play.
a row? That doesn't make any
Yeah,
sense.
I don't think the Cardinals play. Oh no, they play the Red Sox. Sorry, so the Red Sox are like my favorited team on like the MLB. So like
Yeah.
it's all the way at the top and it always throws me off. So, but they're off tomorrow. The Angels are off tomorrow, but they're traveling to LA. The Cardinals are traveling to Boston, so it's not too crazy. So, I mean, if they have a window, maybe. But the Minnesota Chicago game is the interesting one because Minnesota has to travel back home. They don't really get a travel day, so I don't think they wait too long with the White Sox game if the weather's really bad. So I think these are both questionable. I eliminated the pitchers from both of these
Yeah.
teams in my player pool. Bats right now, I have them X'd out, but the great thing about lineup HQ is you can go back and you can put them back in really easily and rerun your build if the weather looks better. So I think we'll wait to see what Roth has to say live after us. But I think right now, whenever I see orange with this many options, it's just an easy stay away spot for me.
Shout out to Freudian Slip in chat who says, who else is watching this at work? Well, me and Stevie, we're not watching it, but we're at work as well. But yeah, shout out to those that are watching the. Yeah, I imagine like I never was an office work type person, right? But I imagine that's one of the best things about working in an office with baseball, just day baseball, just like something to kind of keep you occupied as you're working. Not that you wouldn't work 100% and give everything you can, but I would imagine that's something that helps pass the time. If you're stuck in an office. Watching a little bit of baseball, or at least having like the game tracker on or something like that. So yeah, shout out to Freudian Slip and everybody else hanging out in the chats, and those that are watching at work. Do it that like button and subscribe and turn on those notifications later on. We're gonna be doing some power rankings. Stevie did the board today. We'll be talking about that later, and some feathers may be ruffled. We'll see. The chat might be a little bit upset with some takes from Stevie. I'm checking out the ownership stuff right now as far as pitchers, and we'll do our power rankings as far as stacks again soon enough. You mentioned that you kind of referenced the ownership. Yeah, Skeens is getting the most as of right now, 34%. This stuff is fluid. We'll hit refresh, but this is as of 10 minutes or so ago. So Pablo Lopez, is getting 23%, but you have to think. I think that's probably going to go down. The machine doesn't know that game is dicey as of the moment. It could potentially go away. It could potentially have a delay. Roth will get more clarity in an hour or so. But like you said you X'd out Lopez.
I did. And I like him today. Yeah.
Yeah. Lopez is good. Maybe on a different slate, I'd be a little bit more like, oh my God, I must play Pablo Lopez. And you certainly can survive it, and assuming the rain is fine. But I don't know how much we have to prioritize it, but he does look good, on paper. Mentioned Scooball coming against the third most popular pitcher. Then there's Cole Reagans in Milwaukee. Like Reagans at 8-1 just seems too cheap. I know he scuffled out the box, but one of the better pitchers in all baseball last season. Pepio, the pitch count, a little bit of a concern. Tampa kind of babies their guys. 88 pitches is the projection as of right now. A little bit less than maybe a handful of pitches less than guys like Skeens and Lopez and Louis Castillo. You mentioned Castillo, velocity kind of down, the K's down. But maybe Detroit is a team that can help him get it back. And, of course, that ballpark is really, really positive to throw baseballs in there in Seattle. Another cheapie, picking on the Marlins. I saw Eric in chat talking about touting the Marlins. Eric last year liked touting the A's. Now his team is touting the Marlins. I know they won 3 of 4 of Pittsburgh. All walk-offs, by the way. Shout out to the Marlins. But, I do not have any long-term positivity for the Marlins, and I'm not afraid of throwing pitchers at them. So Clay Holmes, 7K. Another guy comes up, a lot of touting on his behalf coming to the season. I don't know how much you need the salary savings, but they're there. We saw Mackenzie Gore drop 13 strikeouts opening day versus Philadelphia, just spectacular. And he's 7.6. That seems a little bit too cheap. No Alejandro Kirk in that Toronto lineup. Jeffrey Springs, another guy that maybe doesn't push too hard, but 85 pitches. Looks like a tough ballpark out there in Sacramento for the Athletics. I'm not sure. I keep playing the Cubs, and it keeps working out. And Kyle Tucker just keeps homering. Eventually, he's going to stop homering. But,
he's got that torpedo bat, man.
Is he a torpedo bat guy as well?
He is a torpedo bat guy.
Yeah. Do you want to give your torpedo to? It's interesting. Like people are talking about it like it's brand new. It's not brand new.
Not. Yeah.
And people are talking about like the only team that does it is the Yankees. The Yankees not the only team that has torpedo bats. Like they have this exclusivity. Like they, like oh the Yankees, what an unfair advantage. They have the biggest payroll or one of the biggest payrolls. And then they get these torpedo bats. Yeah, but like other teams use it, other players use it, and it's something that's kind of been around. But now it's getting more pub, and I guess mostly good.
No, I mean I think it's genius. Like, and I'm a Red Sox fan, so like anytime I can like say anything bad about the Yankees, I will. But I think it's genius. Like they saw an issue with Volpe, right? They saw that like he was hitting the ball off of a certain part of the bat too much and it wasn't like barreling it enough. So what do they do? I mean, they fixed the problem and he's having an awesome start to the season. So, I mean, they're legal. As long as they're legal and everyone can use them, who cares? I mean, we all want more offense, right? Like pitchers are so good. Like, do you realize how hard it is to hit a 95-mile-an-hour fastball?
It's ridiculous.
Like, yeah. So okay, let's do torpedo bats and let's give the pitcher sticky stuff and let's have some baseball. Because I mean, you're coming from a pitcher and I hit all the time. I played center field too. So, but yeah, I mean, you gotta help the pitchers out a little bit too. And I've heard really good things about the baseballs this year as far as like grip wise for baseballs from the pitchers. So we'll see, but I think it's smart. Good for the Yankees. Good for anybody else, right? Like everybody's seeing the success of it. Like go use it. But I mean, stop complaining. It has nothing to do with salary cap. They saw a problem and they went and fixed it. That's business.
Yeah, and the guy that invented it, apparently, I think he's working with the Marlins now. A team that doesn't, they don't spend a lot of money. They're notoriously cheap, obviously. By the way, what a torpedo bat fix? What does Rafael Devers need to fix his woes? Because he needs 15 strikeouts in his first 18 at bats. It's not, and he had the shoulder issue last season. He's pouting about not playing third base.
I was gonna say he just needs to stop worrying about it. And you know what Rafi needs? He needs David Ortiz to sit down and have a conversation with him and just be like, "Hey, man, this is an opportunity for you to be a huge part of this organization. DHing is." I mean, there's so many good DHs like throughout our lives and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, Devers, he just needs to stop worrying about not playing third base. I mean, Bregman's a Gold Glove third baseman. Like, let's call it how it is. He's going to play third base better than Rafi. So, yeah, I mean, I think he'll get it together. But yeah, I mean, he's kind of being a crybaby, like JB Yankee says over there. So.
But the other thing you're talking about, it's hard to hit a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. Of course, it's hard. It's very hard. But it's even harder when you got to be ready for the breaker if the breaker is coming. That's like, if you know 95 is coming, like, okay, like it's still really hard. But, adjusting for the breaker. And the other thing, people love offense. I don't think these bats are going away. Like, oh, they're going to ban it. They should ban it.
Zero chance these bats go away.
The league loves runs. We love runs. Everybody loves homers. That's the
what do you go to a baseball game for? You go to watch offense.
Yeah. I mean, I know some people like the classic 1-0 pitchers duel that goes 15 innings or something like that. But, we love homers. Homers, that's the most exciting moment for, when you go to a baseball game, essentially. Maybe an inside the parker. And what's more fun than an inside the park home run? That's probably the most fun. You know what's the most fun?
What? No, what's the best is the Little League inside the park home run.
Those are embarrassing, but yes.
Yeah, well, it's okay.
All right. Let's. You could be picky today, right? You kind of ran down some of your pitchers. I think you're talking about the pre-show. You might have more than your typical run as far as making lineups. How many lineups are rolling out today?
I'm playing a little bit more. Like I typically play like 3 to 5, but I built some of my like single entry stuff like I do typically running like a 20 entry max, and then saw this little cool contest on DraftKings for like 12 entries in $1 contest and made some really random teams for that. Some weird qualifier. I didn't even see it before, and I for the longest time couldn't play in these contests. So
me too. They allowed me back in.
I know it's fun to like. It's fun to have fun with those contests, like a couple bucks. But as far as like cheap pitchers, Pepiot and Holmes are like really high up on my list. I ran Clay Holmes a lot in lineups today. Marlins definitely a little bit better than expected, but I think Clay Holmes has the potential and skill set to be an elite pitcher in the bigs. So we saw it out of the bullpen. I'm not too concerned just in general, but man, like you start digging into some of his data, and if he could do it over like a 90 pitch sample size, it's going to be really good. I mean, Garrett Crochet type stuff when you're digging into the stuff for him long term. I mean, he was really, really good in the bullpen. But yeah, I mean, he has an incredible sinker, and he's going to generate a lot of ground balls at the sinker. But he has out pitches too. I mean, we saw it out of the bullpen with his slider sweeper combo. So he has a really good sinker, and then he has two other pitches that move like side to side, and then his sweeper is kind of like a angle type pitch. So I mean, he has the skill set to be really good. I think the Marlins are definitely one of the spots you can pick on still, even though they've been a little bit better to start the season. 100%. And then Pepiot, if this game was in the Trop, he'd probably be one of my like highest owned pitchers. I still have a lot of him, but I mean, this is great hitting conditions. I mean, I live in Florida. You live in Florida for a long time. This is the time of the year where it's just not like it is anywhere else in the country. I mean, it's good hitting conditions. So like the spot, we just saw Shane Baz just absolutely dominate this lineup, and the Pirates are off to a really cold start. I mean, I think O'Neal Cruz is the only hitter over like 100 ISO to start the season. So I think Pepiot is really good. Those are like the two that I'm using the most out of the value guys on DraftKings under 8K. I have some Gore. Like I said with Gore in his first start where he just absolutely dominated, Mackenzie Gore is either really good or really bad. So I could see playing some Mackenzie Gore, and I could see playing some Toronto bats. But Pepiot and Holmes are where I'm going on my cheap pitchers today.
I like both those calls. The Marlins projected lineup just loaded with strikeouts. Jeff's kid, Griffin Conine, there's some power there, but he strikes out a ton, 31.6% versus righties in a 76 at-bat sample. Graham Pauley, the sample's not huge, 35 at-bats, but 40% strikeouts. You mentioned Holmes, 25.1% as far as Ks, specifically the righties over 30%. It tends to go down when you're out of the pen and working longer as a starter, but like you mentioned, I like the arsenal he has working with. Derek Hill 34%, Mervis 31%, Stowers 37%. It's and there's just very little power, right? Conine's got some power, but some holes in his swing. Collectively 26.7%. This is the projected lineup, but tons of strikeouts there. I agree on Pittsburgh. I have noticed on Pittsburgh they've been stealing a lot this year. You mentioned Cruz, a jack in the bag potential for sure, but that lineup is not very deep. They're without McCutchen as well. He's not playing baseball today. Pirates just making no effort whatsoever to add to their team in the offseason. Did they add anybody? If they did, they weren't good. I forget their name. But it's just let's just waste Paul Skeens. But that's what they're doing. Whatever window they may have, they have no interest in adding to that team. Interesting, you said Tampa, the game's outside. I know it's two good pitchers, one elite pitcher and Skeens, 7 total in that ballpark is kind of rare. But like you said, it's going to be one of the hotter games. Weather Edge doesn't really have any data for that, obviously, just yet, because very few games have been played in Steinbrenner Field. As far as data, maybe we'll get a sample at some point later on in the season. I'm giving Weather Edge a refresh, trying to see if anything pops.
I think Tampa and the Athletics are both going to have way more home runs this year in the ballparks they're playing their home games at.
Yeah, I expect that, and especially when it starts heating up, like you said, it should be. I've been watching the Athletics and the Cubs series pretty closely, and the ball does seem to jump there in Sacramento. I did bet the over. I bet the Cubs over. It was cashed in the third or fourth inning or something like that last night. That's always fun when you get that one out of the way. They slow down later on in the game for what it's worth, but I'm not sure. I feel like Vegas might be a little bit behind on the potential of the ballpark there in Sacramento. I'll be back again as far as the Cubs. I like Jeffrey Springs, but I think Tyon is the guy. We'll talk about Stacks soon enough. He's one of the worst pitchers taking the bump today, Jamison Tyon, and we'll discuss. But spoiler alert, I like some Lawrence Butler, some Bidet, Rooker banged one out last night. Anything else you want to mention? Anything else you want to focus on? Do you think you're going to go double barrel, or just like you think it's how much you're prioritizing? I guess double barrel would be two of Skeens, Screwball. I guess Skeens, Screwball. Do you have any lineups of those two?
I do. One of my favorite stacks today is the Athletics.
There you go.
Shot. I mean, we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but it's really easy to get Athletics, Scoble, and Skeens. So I like that a lot. So yeah, I mean, I have a couple. I don't think you need to prioritize it this early in the season, but I mean, when you're looking at the ceiling of pitchers on the slate, they're two of the best. So yeah, I mean, I think I have no issues doing it, but again, Holmes is so cheap that he makes a lot of sense. Like he's my main like SP2, my main build, like my single entry stuff.
I like to look at the slate on the whole, and just kind of like I was looking at the strikeouts, and by the way, just a ton of elite strikeout pitchers, and kind of surprised. Do you know this up? This is this year's data and last year's data. Obviously, it's mostly last year, but the second biggest K rate on the slate, Sonny Gray, 30.2%. It's close. It's tight. Skeens has everybody by 3%. Then there's Gray at 30.2, Scooble at 29.7, Cease right there, 29 and change. Reagan's almost 29, Springs 28. And then there's Peralta. I see Eric's asking about Peralta in chat. We've yet to discuss Freddie. He's fine. This Royals lineup, you said, kind of sputtering a little bit. We do get Vinny P back in the lineup. One of the better ballparks we're hitting in, I suppose, Milwaukee, because it's not colder. I'm guessing the roof is closed. I think the roof's closed today in Milwaukee. I didn't check, but it says no weather available. So I assume that means the roof is closed in Milwaukee. I assume it's cold out in Milwaukee. I couldn't say.
Well, isn't that like one of the weather spot like areas?
Milwaukee?
Yeah, I mean, okay, like, isn't there a huge like weather system going through the United States right now? It's all up in that area.
If there is, I'm not aware of it, but if there is, they're closing the roof, so it wouldn't be an issue. They're saying Milwaukee. Producer Steve saying Milwaukee showing rain on ESPN app. That's weird. Why would they just close the roof? I don't understand. Why would that seems odd. Yeah, I would assume they're just going to close. Okay, so
yeah, I think the roof
38 apparently in Milwaukee right now.
Yeah, the roof is going to be closed.
The roof's going to be closed. Yeah. Okay. I don't. Why would ESPN show rain? Like, come on, they're not going to open the roof up. How much do they hate their fans to do that? Yeah. So
they're
do you
not
like
open the roof up under 50 degrees anyway?
No.
Yeah.
I love when Arizona opens their roof and it's like 110 out. It's like I don't know if they just don't want to splurge for AC. I don't know what the story is with that, but Arizona does that when it's in triple digits sometimes. Like, yeah, let's just open the roof. Yeah. How do you feel about Freddie Peralta? Where does he work in the conversation for you? It's just it's tough. It's hard to get to the podium when there's so many good arms, contending to get your rosters.
Yeah, in my like 20 entry max build, I have like 20% of him, I think. And it's more of just like these bats are off to kind of a cold start outside of like Vinny P. Witt, not the best start to the season, bottom half of this lineup, but they're still not striking out a ton. They still have one of the lower strikeout rates in baseball. So like he's a great strikeout pitcher and his stuff is electric. So I think you want to play a little bit of him because of the strikeout ability and strikeout upside. It's just when you're putting him in the price range of like Cease and Scoble and Skeens, it's really hard to play a lot of Peralta, but I think his ownership is interesting at like 12%. I think projected ownership is going to continue to update as we get closer to lock, but he's going to come in at like 10 to 15%. I don't mind going a little bit over that. Is kind of what my thought process was. So I prefer him over Cole Reagans on the other side of this game. Cole Reagans is really struggling with command right now. He dealt with command issues all of spring training, and he's been dealing with command issues. He dealt with it the first start. He just could not locate his pitches. And when you're a strikeout guy, you have to be able to locate your pitches. And we saw him, like, his whiff rate was way down. His swinging strike whiff rate was way down. And, yeah, I mean, when you're not locating, you're going to struggle. And I think Milwaukee's a very beatable offense, especially the lineup that they're rolling out there today. But I think Cole Reagans with his command issues just doesn't. I X'd him out. I'll be honest. I did not play any Cole Reagans today. So I'm very concerned about the control and command. And I think there's way too many good pitchers to play him today.
My favorite time to play Reagans is when like he gets lined up like 9 righties. And so he's a super reverse splitsy. Yeah. As far as his Ks last year, 32% versus righties, barely 21, almost 21 versus lefties, So left on lefty is not as dominant, but versus righties, again, the big reverse. But I guess Milwaukee read the scouting report because they're going to have, looks like Terang, Frelick, and Mitchell, 3 lefties. Okay, I guess, yeah. So they're gonna roll out 6 righties. Obviously, more teams are going to be a righty heavy. By the way, I don't know if you care about this. Just want to pass it along. Looks like Scooble has an extreme hitters umpire. I don't really care. It's not ideal. Extreme hitters umpire also in Sacramento, which is of note as well for Springs. And we keep talking about that ballpark. Is that it as far as the extremes? I think that's it. Yeah, just 2 extremes. No extreme pitchers umpires for what it's worth, but the extreme hitters umpire for Springs, for Tyon, for Scooble, for Castillo. So, do you care? How much do you care about that?
It matters for sure. Obviously, I don't want to see an extreme hitters umpire for him, but yeah, I mean, it's not going to be one of those situations that affect me enough. I like to see the extreme pitchers umpires more, but yeah, I mean, I think Scobel against this team is still a very good spot.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm not frightened. I'm not going to be chased away. It's not necessarily ideal. It's more so for pitchers that like really need the corners, pitchers that have like high walk rates, where I'm a little bit more alarmed. Somebody just tuned in, Stevie. Somebody just tuned in right now, and they're like, "Man, I would love it. I know I missed the first chunk of the show. I would love it if I can get a recap of pitching. How do I approach today's pitching slate? Can you give them the TLDR, 30-second, 1-minute elevator pitch? How are you approaching pitching today?"
Yeah, I think we both can agree that Skeens and Scobel 1A, 1B, not particularly a huge difference outside of ownership. And like you said, a little bit better umpire for Skeens and Scobel. I would definitely say I think the matchup is better for Scobel than Skeens. Tampa, they're hitting, and the ballpark is much friendlier hitter ballpark than Seattle. So from what we've seen so far, very small sample size, but it looks like Tampa is going to be better hitting conditions. Dylan Cease would be that 3 for me. And then I love Clay Holmes and Ryan Pepiot today. Those are the 2 guys that on the cheap end I'm going to play a lot of. Clay Holmes, again, I talked about it a lot, but if you're just tuning in, I think that he has the skill set and the pitch mix to be really good in the majors. And I could see him just absolutely dominating this Marlins lineup. So, and then Pepiot against Pittsburgh, I think, is a really good spot too. Pittsburgh is off to a really slow start. So those are the 5 that I'm really kind of building around. I'll have a little bit of like Valdez and a little bit of like Castillo, a little bit of Peralta. But those are the 5 that I'm really building around, with Clay Holmes actually being my highest owned pitcher today.
Just want to acknowledge that we currently have Dylan Cease at like 1% ownership. And we talked about Cleveland being, sneaky. I don't want to say K heavy, but depending on what lineup they roll out, there could be some Ks there. And certainly there's a world where Dylan Cease has the most strikeouts in the slate. Like that wouldn't shock anybody. 1%. I think you got to get over that in tournaments. You're not playing him in your cash games. And just one more name I want to throw out there, Stevie. Different slate, different day. He could be like the top pitcher. I don't think we said the name Framber Valdez. Who's just a quality.
I said that I would have him in my pool.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he's not somebody that's going to be played today. Quality start machine. Out of the quality starts, the QS matters more on FanDuel. But I just worth acknowledging. I rarely pick on him. Great pitcher. The ground balls, it's hard to get a bunch of homers off of him. We'll talk about stacks soon enough, but
we should note though, really quick, that the Giants lineup is kind of built for Valdez. Ramos, Chapman, Flores all hit lefties really well, and they're all fly ball guys, and Adames is a fly ball guy. So if there was ever a time to be a little concerned about Valdez against like fly ball hitters. Like 4 righties in that ballpark is definitely concerning just a little bit. I just wanted to throw that out there. I do have Valdez in my pool. I always have Valdez in my pool. Good combination of strikeouts and being able to get out of innings because of his ground ball stuff. But I mean, it is a little concerning that when you're looking at this lineup and they have 4 righties that hit lefties well, and they all hit fly balls against lefties in this ballpark where you got the Crawford boxes down there, down the line, and definitely a bump to the right-handed pull hitters.
All right, we're going to bring up our power rankings board in just a second, but I'm sure you saw producer Steve was showing up a lot of the bells, a lot of the whistles, a lot of the lineup HQ stuff. Of course, that's just one thing we have here at RG as far as our tools. We're referencing Plate IQ all the time. If you want to get an MLB DFS annual, you get all the access, all the articles, the survey and the rankings, all the goods. SimLabs, it's $425. However, we dropped the price of our Combo Pro product to mirror the price of the MLB annual package. So you might as well get more sports for the same price: football, baseball, basketball, hockey, NBA, PGA, everything with the exception of NASCAR. Stevie will juice you up with that. You got to do that a la carte. Combo Pro 6-month, it gives you access to our content, our tools, our projections, every sport. Again, a cheaper price is when you go month by month, you actually save 35% if you choose a 6-month option instead of going monthly. Sign up now. MLB projections, NBA content, PGA data, anything you want. It's available. Link in the description. Should also mention the props and pick'em package that it's currently being discounted. We're knocking off 50% for your first month. Sign up again. The link in the description if you're in the underdog streets, prize picks, or you can just kind of translate that stuff to your sports book as well as far as player props. And they'll even highlight, they'll say, well, this one is the best bet. It's a 65% chance to hit. And just, it'll be kind of like, it'll go down progressively as far as the chances. It's very, very simple. It's dummy proof to kind of figure out what the best bets on the board happen to be at a very specific moment. Stevie, we're going to talk stacks in just a second, but let's introduce today's stack category. Let's get the chat going. Let's have the chat participate. Tell them what the category is, and chat, let us know what your favorites and or least favorite is in this category.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this last night, and then Dean messaged me today, and I was like, yeah, I actually have a list for you, which probably shocked him because he's probably like, Stevie, no chance you remember this, but
I was surprised. I had one ready.
So I came up with best baseball movies, which I find very fascinating. I could name 10 to 15 baseball movies that I would never turn off when they're on TV if I wasn't doing anything. So yeah, chat before we put the graphic up. What is your favorite baseball movie? And we'll see if anybody is on the same page with me. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting thoughts when it comes to this category today. But yeah, I mean, best baseball movies is where I'm at. Shall we tell them?
I will say I got a sneak peek at your list, Stevie, and I didn't hate it. I wasn't mad about it. But I did say my 2 favorite movies were actually not on your board. But again, not saying you're wrong. It's all subjective, and it's tough. It's tough because there are a lot of good movies in the conversation. I was a little upset with the movie you put in the bottom because it sounds like you don't like it, and that means you don't like fun.
But I use terms to you that I can't say on air about the movie. It's an interesting movie and you can't stop watching it, right? Like that's what it is.
Sure.
It's hilarious, but it's stupid. So yeah, but I put that in number 5 to have some fun with chat. But my favorite baseball movie, one of my favorite movies of all time, not just baseball movie, Field of Dreams. How do you just can't beat that movie. So well written. The cast is incredible. Field of Dreams is just, if you build it, they will come. And I mean, every time you think of that term and you think of baseball, you think of Field of Dreams. So I have Field of Dreams as my top movie. Major League, dude, the first one, incredible. Everyone after that, so stupid. They should have just left it at 1 or brought the cast back. I hate that they didn't bring the cast back, but Major League, like, some of these movies are like super serious, but Major League is just awesome. And then for love of the game, I was a baseball pitcher. So the fact that like that movie is really baseball pitching and stuff like that. I love that movie. it's an incredible story. And yeah, I mean, I sympathize with that movie. I've gone through 3 torn rotator cuffs. So yeah, I sympathize with that movie, the injuries and stuff. And then, I mean, realistically, the Sandlot, for love of the game, they could be 3 or 4 fielded, or even 2. I mean, Major League is just one of the ones that I always can watch. Sandlot, I can always watch. And then number 5, basketball. I'm so interested to see how many people thought about this. I would probably have A League of Their Own or Moneyball in this 5 spot. Those movies are awesome baseball movies, but I wanted for chat to have a little bit of fun, and I wanted to put some basketball in there. If you've never seen it, you should. It's stupid, but it's funny. It's a basketball baseball movie, and it's just yeah.
So I think, Stevie, I think you approach this differently than I approach it. One, to me, the one hole is the best baseball movie. The 5 hole,
that's what I put.
But the 5 hole is the worst baseball movie. It's not the 5th best. That's the way. Okay. Yeah, so because this is the worst possible spot. Like, we're gonna throw the worst teams, like teams you don't want to stack at all. You throw in. So I would throw the worst base. So I read it as if you did not like basketball.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we just approached it differently. Trip is asking if Eastbound and Down counts. It is not. It's a TV show. But if we did do baseball TV shows, that would be number 1. I don't know if you've seen that with Kenny Powers. It's spectacular TV.
Worst baseball movie of all time has to be like Benchwarmers, right? That movie is just atrociously bad. Or even like Major League 2 or the minors, like those are just so bad.
Summer Catch is not great.
See, that was one of my favorite movies growing up.
I've
outgrown that movie, but it was one of my favorite movies growing up.
I remember watching the World Series, and they filmed it during the World Series when Boston was playing St. Louis, and you can actually see during the celebration when Boston won in St. Louis, Jimmy Fallon and Drew Barrymore on the field. It's like, what?
That's not Summer Catch. You're talking about Fever Pitch.
Oh, I'm thinking Fever Pitch. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I got those two confused. But they're both bad.
I mean, 42 is a really good movie.
Very good. Yeah. Excellent.
Really good movie. Love that story. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really good. I mean, The Rookie, Moneyball, Hardball, dude. Every time I watch Hardball, I always cry. No shame.
Yeah.
G Baby, man, like that one just hits. That hits. So, Jimmy Fallon movie filmed in my neighborhood. Bobby Gomes. There you go. Terrible movie. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm a Red Sox fan. That didn't make mine. Oh, you know, another one that I really like that I'll watch a lot is that Clint Eastwood movie, Trouble with a Curve.
Oh, Justin Timberlake, is it?
Pitcher movies, man, like always.
Okay, so Minnesota Chicago just got postponed, according to Casey in chat.
It says likely from Underdog.
Yes,
but it says we just got an alert saying that it's delayed. It's not postponed yet.
Yeah, I'm seeing delay. Okay, yeah, and I think KC retracted. Somebody retracted that message. Yeah, it's just delay, and that I think was our anticipation. Okay, and again, if you guys aren't aware, I'll go ahead and drop us again. Roth will be on, about 35, 40 minutes or so. Today's weather report.
We'll see what Roth has to say, but St. Louis, all the weather right now is staying north of the ballpark, so we'll have to get a clarification from Roth on that one.
He updated it and actually flipped it, and it was orange yellow, and now it's yellow orange. The dominant color is first. So Roth is suggesting, again, he'll clarify. It got better. It's not as bad as it was an hour ago in his update.
That was for Minnesota. I'm talking about the
Minnesota Chicago. Yeah. It appeared he's saying, I think a late start looks likely here. Let's see, with a late start in play being the most likely outcome, keeping some postponed risk. But it does seem like there's a decent chance they play now. Okay. 7 total, by the way. Lopez versus Burke. I don't know how interested we are in bats, but maybe the pitchers could be interesting if they just do their best to get that one in. But
the ownership should be down a little bit too, right? Because of the weather. So maybe it makes it more appealing for the Minnesota bats. I like the Minnesota bats a little bit more than the White Sox bats, but Burke is hittable. So we'll talk. I mean, we're about to do that, right? We're about to talk about the bats. So
we're not sure what Burke is, but he's one of the bigger question marks on the slate. We're not for sure he's a stud that we can say about at least 5 other pitchers on the slate. Let's do it. Let's jump in. The very first game we're going to talk about here on the DK slate, it's the Royals taking on the Brew Crew, 7.5 total, 2 historically good pitchers. Cole Reagans, Peralta. Milwaukee is a slight favorite here. We do have Vinny P. Vinny P is back in the lineup, batting third. He sat yesterday. Trying to see if there's anything different as far as lineups today. Isaac Collins, has he been hitting third for Milwaukee? I feel like he hasn't. If he has, I missed it. But that looks a little bit different. And we talk about Reagans as far as his splits. You love to see him against a bunch of righties. His Ks are at 32% or so against right-handers. Royals, Brewers, where are we putting these offenses?
Yeah, I think the Kansas City side against Peralta, I'm going to put them in the basketball. I'll have to remember that for next time. Next time I come on the show with you, I'll list my least favorite movie.
No worries.
So I would, yeah, but out of the 5, it's my least favorite. So there you go. Yeah, I mean, just not a great spot. Peralta's a really good pitcher. I mean, if you wanted to one-off like a Witt or Pascantino, no one would tell you no. But for stack purposes, they're just not a team I'm going to stack today. And then on the Milwaukee side, I'm going to put them in the Sandlot range. It's a really tough spot if Reagans is on, but I do have some Milwaukee like secondary stacks today in case Reagans is still struggling with command. They have some power upside at the top half of this lineup. So Hoskins is in there. Vinny Capra out of nowhere, like this power guy. So Jackson always one of my. I mean, I'm not buying it yet. The advanced stats like him, but it's such a small sample size. He's just a huge ground ball guy from what we've seen so far. So I'm not buying it yet, but I am buying like Cole Reagans being broken right now. So yeah, I mean. Either way, for me, I'm going to have a couple Milwaukee like secondary stacks.
Collins had a lot of stolen bases in the minors for what it's worth. Vinny Capra, looking at his minor league stuff and just very little power. So I'm not buying. Yeah, I'm not in on it. And no stolen bases, essentially. So I'm not excited about Vinny Capra for the record. Pittsburgh taking on the Rays outside there in St. Pete at Steinbrenner Field. Another 7 total. Mostly because Paul Skeens and Ryan Pepiot. Pepiot's really good as well. Pittsburgh a slight favorite here. We mentioned no McCutchen for Pittsburgh. Also no Bart doing the catching. Aranda back in the lineup today for Tampa. Where do we have as far as our stacks? I mean, do you want to pick on Paul Skeens? Do you think somehow he's going to give up the most runs on the board, the most homers, most fantasy points? Nobody's gonna play Tampa. Leverage. I'm not playing Tampa. Have at it if you want it. It's not for me. What say you?
Yeah, I'm out. Tampa is going to be in that basketball range for me as well. Hey, listen, we've used Tampa a lot to start the season, right? Like Magnum had a huge game yesterday. Brandon Lau looks like he's healthy, which is great. So, yeah, I mean, I'll continue to use Tampa, and I really like them in this ballpark. But Paul Skeens, an elite pitcher, one of the best young pitchers that we have in baseball. Don't need to do it with him. And then I'm going to put Pittsburgh in that basketball range too. I mean, I like the ballpark, but I think Pepiot's good. And I think we're going to see him take the next step this year and pitch better. I just want to see him pitch deeper. And the fact that like he kind of averaged like 82 pitches last year and threw 85 in his debut this year. Yeah. So that's a huge positive when, talking about Pepiot. If they're going to let him go, 90 to 95 pitches consistently this year, you're going to get a little bit more upside from him. But it's the Rays. If he's pitched really well through 6 innings and he's at like 80, 81 pitches, you're probably going to not see the 7th because they believe in the bullpen. But I'm going to put both Tampa and Pittsburgh in basketball today.
Yeah, Rasmussen was pitching really good, but they halt him at 5 as well. And it's kind of baked into the price. But I do like Pepiot a good bit as like an SP2. All the good pitchers taking the bump today. Biggest K rate in the board, Paul Skeens. Lowest Sierra, Paul Skeens. Dating back to last season, including this season. He is the best amongst the best and all the, a lot of the ones going today. I will be leaning in. Skeens is awesome. We will discuss this one. The alert is that highly dicey in St. Louis. Sonny Gray taking on Kikuchi. 8.5 is the total. Roth did note, by the way, I do want to mention this in Roth's weather report. He said, yikes, it's straight orange. But if this game happens to play, he said it's great hitting weather if they happen to go. So put that in your back pocket. We were talking about Luke and Baker. He's drawing the start here against Kikuchi. There's a chance he turns into Alec Burleson when a righty comes in. Situation dependent. You really can't know when that situation is going to happen. But, if there's a couple of guys on and they're down by a couple, or, if they're up 10-0, they'll probably let him play the entire game. But he's somebody that's projecting pretty well as a first base punt. Good power versus lefties. Kikuchi will give it up on occasion. Where do you have the Angels and the Cardinals, again, assuming the game plays, which is, we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if this game doesn't get postponed, I would definitely have a lot of interest in the St. Louis side. They'd be in the for love of the game range for me, because Kikuchi's not going to necessarily overpower people, and the hitting conditions are incredible. So if Roth greenlights this game, and I mean, if this weather continues to stay north, and I mean, he'll do a better job than me. I think you would definitely stack St. Louis a little bit. The Angels side, no real interest for me. I'd put them in the basketball range. Yeah, good hitting conditions. Sonny Gray, obviously a lot of concerns coming into the season for him, but I mean, he looked good, and this lineup continues to be really bad. If you're the Angels and you're really just saying, hey, I want to build around Mike Trout, like, help him out. Soler and Renifo being like the protection for Mike Trout is embarrassing. Like, I don't know. If I'm the Angels, Dean, I'm hitting Trout leadoff, putting Ward behind him, and trying to like make pitchers pitch to him, because pitchers are just kind of pitching around him to start the season, and that's what I would do. Hey, I know I can strike out Soler right behind you, so I'm gonna pitch around you. I mean, for me, I'd put the Angels in the basketball. No real interest in them right now.
Yeah, they made some weird signings, the Angels. I complain about the teams that aren't signing players, like the Marlins and the Pirates, and then we're complaining about the Angels. They're at least kind of sort of trying, but I think, like you said, I think they're trying badly.
Are they, though? Are they?
They signed Kenley Jansen, like, to a one-year deal. Like, the Angels aren't winning anything this year. Like, what are you doing? What's the point of that? Like, why? What do you need a 35-year-old, whatever he is, relief closer? It's just, what's the
names to make fans happy, but I mean, I'm not going to Angels games if I live in LA.
This conversation has never happened. Like, oh, you want to go to the Angels game today? I don't know. They signed Kenley Jansen. Oh yeah, let's go. Like, that's never happened. Kenley Jansen, what?
But they got Moncada. Yeah.
It's very strange, and they still have the worst contract in baseball, and Anthony Rendon, who I guess we're just never going to see him again. I don't know, but that is about as terrible a contract, and they still have like 4 more years of that or so. It's really, really bad. Good for Rendon, I suppose, but just an absolute disaster. Okay, another game that's potentially dicey, although Roth did upgrade it to yellow-orange. Chicago. Sean Burke, Pablo Lopez. Burke was good in his first start. He's kind of a mystery box. We like to pick on the White Sox. I know they've had a couple games here and there, but the bigger sample we get, the more it's going to be exposed to, like, wait a second, maybe Travis Jankowski and Michael A. Taylor, maybe this is not the future that we envision. Minnesota taking on the White Sox. Where do we have the Twins and the Sox?
Yeah, I mean, again, assuming this game plays, we'll see what Roth has to say, but I will put the White Sox in the Sandlot range, and it's more of just like Nick Matten is so incredibly cheap at second base, which is a kind of a position that's like a wasteland. And I mean, he's hitting leadoff again. Hit a home run last night. I think that's his second home run of the season. Benintendi's off to a really solid start. He finished last season solid, so I could see one-offs. I don't think I'd stack the White Sox against Lopez, but I think like Matten and Benintendi one-offs. The catcher, why can't I think of his name right now? Is it Thice? Yeah. He's cheap, and he's hitting, I think, 5th today. So, like, I think Chicago's just, like, if this game plays, you can use them as one-offs. So I'd put them in that range. And then Minnesota, I mean, I don't believe in Sean Burke yet, so I'd put them in for love of the game. I think that they're a stackable team. You got Wallner, Correa, Buxton, Larnach. Ty France is eventually going to start hitting the ball or not, and he won't be in a Major League Baseball uniform anymore, but he was a huge prospect with a lot of power, and it just really hasn't panned out. So I think that Minnesota, they have some upside if this game plays. And Eric, I know the Angels are 4-1, but they're not good. They're not going to make the playoffs.
Maton has like shown no power historically. He's not a speed guy either. I don't know why he leads off, but it's the White Sox, and who cares? He's never had more than 2 stolen bases in his life. Strikes out a ton. He will walk. He'll get a walk, I guess, is something he can do. But again, the White Sox, you got to have somebody lead off. And, it's not a very good lineup, not much to work with. I would also say this, like this stuff kind of goes without saying for us. And if you are playing the dicey games, all or nothing, like do not play a one-off for Chicago, the White Sox. Do not play a one-off for Minnesota. Do not play a one-off for, the Angels in St. Louis. If it's dicey weather-wise, we get there. Is that fair to say? Either stack it or nothing?
Yep.
Okay. It's the early start of the season, Stevie. These things that we kind of know. Maybe some new players, just as a refresher, that kind of stuff. Just wanted to throw that out there. Easton Lucas taking on Washington. The Nats taking on a Mackenzie Gore coming off one of the more dominant starts we've seen in a while. 13 Ks on opening day versus the Phillies. Slight favorite for Washington. We mentioned for Toronto, day game after a night game. So Kirk is not in there. Schneider doing the catching for the Blue Jays. We still have nobody in Field of Dreams, nobody in Major League, the top 2 tiers. By the way, some people in chat were chiming in. They were asking why I did not go out there and say, I didn't stand for my 2 favorite movies are League of Their Own, baseball movies, and Moneyball. You did kind of reference them. I was mad they weren't on your board, but personally, I would probably have those 1, 2 in some combination. JT's asking us about lighter and green. That's the early FanDuel slate, and I didn't do MLB content today. I didn't do FanDuel content today, and I'm not playing FanDuel. And FanDuel just chopped this slate up multiple ways, and we're like, let's just talk to the DK slate, which has much bigger pools. I don't really have any thoughts because I didn't really dig in, but do you have any thoughts by chance? I don't know if you looked at it or not, on Jack Leiter taking on Hunter Green, the 1240 game.
Yeah, I didn't do any research for that game. I will say Leiter actually looked really solid in his debut this year. So there's that. But some of his advanced stats definitely stood out. Hunter Green looked really good early. He has a ton of strikeout upside. This lineup is good. So, I'm not playing that FanDuel slate and didn't do a lot of research, but that's like quick thoughts is like both of those pitchers maybe, but I would prefer Green over Leiter.
Washington, Toronto, where are we throwing them on the board?
Yeah, okay. Back to actually talking baseball, right? So I think Toronto is a for love of the game stack today. I think they're a stack or fade. I liked them a lot more until the lineup came out. Like I would have had them in the major league category, had like Kirk been in there, and they had a couple more of these righties. Again, I'll say it again. Mackenzie Gore, really good, really bad. He doesn't have many like in between starts. He's usually on or off. So I think if you're playing Toronto, you're stacking them. On the Washington side, I don't think Easton Lucas is gonna. He's what we've seen from him so far. Nothing like great. So again, I think Easton Lucas in the for love of the game, or Washington in the for love of the game. Rosario's cheap. Dylan Cruz has some upside. Jacob Young's in there as well. I wish he was hitting in a better spot, but yeah, I have some interest in Washington, like mini stacks, 3-man stacks today. I just don't think Easton Lucas is good. So I'll put Washington and Toronto both in my for love of the game as like secondary stacks today.
All right. Next up on the board, still nobody's cracked the top 2. Maybe we'll get there here. Jeffrey Springs taking on Jamison Tyon out there in Sacramento. 8.5 total. Oakland is a slight favorite here. Springs, I think, pretty clearly the better pitcher than Tyon. Tyon might be possibly the worst pitcher on the slate. We mentioned that Lucas, it's a really, really small sample. In the small sample, he's got a 16% as far as Ks and a 14% as far as walks. Now, if that holds, like he's just going to get kicked out of the league at some point. There's no way that can sustain. If it does, again, maybe he's just terrible. Tyon is the second lowest K rate on the board with a big sample, 169 innings dating back to last season, 18% strikeouts, a fair bit of fly balls, 1.22 homers per 9. As far as Sierra, we're going to rank the Sierras on the board. He's the 5th worst. Where do we have the Athletics and the Cubbies?
Yeah, so I'll have 3 teams by the time we're done in the Field of Dreams, and the Athletics is the first one. They're one of my favorite stacks today. Jamison Tyon doesn't miss bats. He had a 4% K rate in his first game. His swinging strike rate was like 6%, and he gave up a lot of barrels. Butler, Roker, Blade, Langolier, Soderstrom, like they're all. I mean, I played a lot of the A's and lineups that I built before the show, so like this spot a lot. Tyon is like I said, he's a very hittable pitcher. We think this ballpark is going to be really good for hitting this year from what we've seen so far. It's going to be better than Oakland. Let's just be honest. It's going to be better than Oakland.
How could it not be? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and like, you're not getting those like high flyouts to the first base foul line and stuff. So you're getting more chances at bats. So yeah, Athletics, Field of Dreams for me. Cubs right there too. I mean, they're in the major league category for me today. Springs looked really good in his first start, but it was against Seattle. Seattle really struggles with left-handed pitching. The Cubs have a really good lineup. They're going to be a team we stack a lot this season, especially when we get like windy Wrigley games. So, I'm very interested in both of these teams.
Yeah. Is Tucker going to continue his streak of homering in 4 consecutive games? Will he make it 5 left on left?
Yeah, I mean, torpedo bat.
Torpedo bat equals guaranteed homer. For sure. And yeah, 220 ISO last year versus lefties, 371 WOBA. We tend to avoid left on left stuff, but Tucker was just fine against lefties. And again, this is projected lineup. As of right now, I think we're flying blind on all these games going forward. No lineups just yet for the Cubs, the A's, Washington, not just yet. Be on alert.
Really quick. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we should get Carson Kelly in there at catcher today instead of Amaya, which is an upgrade for the lineup.
Yeah, day game after the night game, and I could not believe, me, I tilt about the people celebrating the cycle, but yeah, Carson Kelly, Chris in the ballpark, the very first game ever in Sacramento, major league game, and his last at bat he got the triple. Like, what are the live odds on that? But I was watching that game. I think it was off the center field wall. It took a weird bounce, and the team went nuts. Okay, Detroit, Seattle. Tarek Skubal versus Louis Castillo, 6.5. Very, very paltry total. Hard to get excited about these offenses here. Good ballpark, great pitchers, especially on the Detroit side. Castillo's one's really, really good. The Ks are falling off a little bit. The velocity down a little bit long in the tooth, but he should be able to hold his team down on the Detroit side. Detroit slight favorite here, minus 130. I'm guessing you said there's a couple teams that are going to pop up here in the Field of Dreams category. I'm guessing neither one of these two. You tell me.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Producer Steve nailed the Seattle. He didn't get the Detroit one right, but he got the Seattle one right. It's going down in the bottom range for me. They're really bad against left-handed pitching. The lineup is a little bit different this year. They do have like some power righties in the lineup, but yeah, I mean, prove it to me. I'm just not there. And I think Skubal is going to pitch way better today than he did on opening day. He faced the Dodgers. His stuff looked great. Highest velocity of average of like one of his highest averages. So if he's going to be throwing harder, his changeup was a little off like command wise. But I mean, you don't get a break when you face the Dodgers, Dean. I mean, when you're a pitcher facing the Dodgers, you just don't get a break. You got to throw your best pitch every single batter. So. And then on the other side, Castillo's not a huge strikeout guy, so I'd put the Detroit team in the Sandlot range. I could see using like a Kerry Carpenter or Riley Green as like one-offs. Not a team I'd stack today. Castillo's good enough where I don't think you want to stack against him, but power lefties with Carpenter or Green, I think are definitely in play. Just not a team that I would run like a mini stack out for.
Crunch time coming in about 10, 15 minutes or so. 10 minutes. Kevin Roth, chief meteorologist Kevin Roth, going to be all over the updates. A couple weather games out there that are lurking. He'll do his best to give you a verbal update. We talked about the update in the article Eric Beinfor, and then we also have Dave Potts. Cheeseisgood, the author of the Musings. It's called the $1 Million Musings. It's not ironically titled. Dude won $1 million 2 times playing fantasy baseball. We have 2 or 3 more games to go. 3 more games to go. Making a pretty good time here. Landon Roop taking on Framber Valdez, 7.5 total. Astros, pretty big favorite here, minus 170. Very right-handed offense here for the Astros. You prefer lefties against Roop, so I know the Astros have a 4 total, which is bigger than most. 4.2 is one of the bigger totals on the board with all these slew of good arms. It's tricky to find ourselves some stacks we're fully confident in. Where do you have the Astros and the Giants?
Yeah, so I have the Giants in the Sandlot because, like I was talking about earlier, I think that they have some fly ball hitters that have power. Ramos, Adames, Chapman, Flores. Can you stack against Valdez? I can't, but I could play and chase a home run or two here. So I would put them in that like Sandlot, like one-off type range. I mean, my board is like stacks I really like, secondary stacks, one-offs, teams I'm not playing. So there you go. That's how I wrote it down earlier anyway. So yeah, I mean, for me on the Roop side, I don't know what to really expect. 26-year-old, kind of a minor league journeyman for like 3 or 4 years. Never really had a home run problem. Does a good job generating ground balls. His swinging strike rate definitely got better over the last year and a half. I'm not believing it yet. So the Astros are off to a really cold start to start the year. I think Pena is the only one with an ISO over 100 to start the season. But you have to think that like they're going to hit one of these games. The Astros are just going to have one of those games where they just hit. So I'm going to put them in the for love of the game, borderline major league. I think the Astros definitely a stackable team today.
All right, 2 more games to go, Stevie. Get some homers on layaway.
There's someone in chat saying we're skipping the early slate. We are talking about the early slate. This whole slate is the early slate, unless he means FanDuel.
Cheese. So this person is their opinion's objectable. It's questionable and dicey. Their opinion basically is like the weather currently in St. Louis. The show doesn't start when you show up. You can actually go rewind. If the show all of a sudden you showed up and the show starts, we don't just go. Oh wait, is Special Vito here? Okay, that means we got to go. Hit rewind and we start from the beginning. And the 1 o'clock games going forward. We're in an order. We did not discuss the Texas game because the FanDuel's
contest.
Our apologies for that. You got us there. We did not discuss Texas and Cincinnati because FanDuel
early only FanDuel slate has a $9 squeeze for a 4K prize pool.
All right, and the guy's throwing shade at Cheese because Cheese has not won $1 million yesterday, so that obviously means he doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay, so let's go forward. 2 more games. We have we got Cleveland and San Diego 7.5 total. Dylan Cease taking on Ben Lively, the Padres, big boy favorites. One of the more vulnerable pitchers taking the bump is Ben Lively. The Padres, undefeated, I believe, so far. 6-0, I want to say. Good for them. By the way, good for Jackson Merrill. Jackson Merrill was just signed to, I think, a 7-year extension. 9 years. 9 years, 135 mil. Like buying out his arbitration years, too. That probably is a really good deal for them, assuming Merrill will just 22. And we saw he banged one out left on left yesterday. He celebrates now with a big boy contract. 9 years, 135. Where do you have the Padres and their opponent, Cleveland?
We'll start with Padres. We're going to put them up in our Field of Dreams category. One of my favorite stacks on the slate. We obviously don't have a lineup yet. Hoping Gavin Sheets cracks the lineup. He's really cheap. He'll make the stack work. Cronenworth helps make the stack work. You want to get Merrill and Tatis in there. I think those are the 2 guys you kind of build around when you're stacking the Padres. But yeah, I mean, Sheets, Hayward could potentially be in there. It'd be great if they gave like Xander Bogaerts the day off or something like that. And like actually like Gavin Sheets like hit up towards the top of the lineup. Have you followed Gavin Sheets yet this year? Like he's so happy to be in a different uniform. He's hitting everything. So one of my favorite plays, I tagged him on Lineup HQ today for my expert plays.
Well, he was in Chicago last year, right? He was a White Sox.
Yeah, like you have to be happy. You got to be happy going from the White Sox to this team.
Nice weather in San Diego too.
Yeah, for some reason he's just priced way down, and he just keeps hitting. So this is just one that's getting overlooked in the algorithm. He'll be priced up soon enough. So yeah, I mean, love the Padres today. I think they're an excellent stack. Cleveland, I'm going to put them in the basketball range today. I don't have any interest in Cleveland against Dylan Cease. I mean, you could one off a Jose Ramirez or like a Kyle Manzardo. But the bottom half of this lineup is kind of a joke. You mentioned Lane Thomas. We talked about Bo Naylor. It's just a really bad bottom half. Cleveland, I think they'll make some moves, and we'll see some better hitters or some young hitters here. But, yeah, I mean, no interest for me in Cleveland stacks here.
All right, last game on the early slate. Producer Steve's Mets, my former team, the Marlins, 8.5 total, tough ballpark. Still, despite the tough ballpark, the Mets are locked in for 9 innings no matter what, no matter how ugly this game gets. When they're on the road, taking on Connor Gillespie, whatever nonsense comes out of that Marlins bullpen. The Marlins projected to have one of the worst bullpens in baseball. The only team on the board that is a 5 total is the Mets. You said there are 3 teams in the Field of Dreams category. I'm going to go ahead and say it's the Mets and not the Marlins.
It is the Mets. Producer Steve was kind of being modest there, putting them in the middle because that's his team, right? Like, listen, Soto is probably the best hitter on the slate today. This is an incredible matchup for him. I just don't think Gillespie is going to be good long term. You know, there's a lot of bad secondary and like advanced stats for him, so he's got a lot to work on. Soto, Lindor, Alonso, Nimmo, Vientos, Winker's really cheap, kind of helps make the stack work. They're an expensive stack. You're not going to double barrel, with these guys. So you're going to have to play a cheaper SP2 and find a couple cheap bats to go with the stack. But yeah, I like the Mets a lot today. Miami. So my problem with Miami and why I'm going to put them in the basketball range today is I think they're going to have to BABIP Holmes. I don't think Clay Holmes is going to give up a lot of home runs this year. His pitch mix, sinker, slider, like a slurve, they all are like ground ball type pitches. So they don't have any like giant fly ball hitters in this lineup. They hit a lot of ground balls already. And I think that if they beat Holmes, it would be a BABIP like single, double type of game. There's just not a lot of upside in those types of stacks. There's a lot of strikeouts in this lineup. So, yeah, I like Clay Holmes a lot, and I'm not even going to try the leverage stack. I'm going to put Miami in the bottom today, and easy team for me to fade.
Question in chat's asking, would you do a 3-man Mets as opposed to a 5-man? I'm guessing because they want to get away from chalky Mets, but there's ways to play Mets without, obviously you don't build the...
Play Mets with Dylan Cease. That's one way to make your Mets stacks different.
Go. I like I want to see what that Cleveland lineup is, but if we get the strikeout heavy guys, if we get Lane Thomas, if they get, Nolan Jones, if we somehow get Quan or Ramirez or, Santana to sit, I'm going to have my eyes on that one. But I think Cease, if he's going to be at 1 or 2%, as he was projected earlier, it's not hard to get over that in especially large field stuff. And I like that as a potential differentiator in single entry, like nobody's going to play Cease. And for sure, there's a path where he's like the top K guy on the slate. Let me do the recap as I'm thinking of as I'm going to run down the recap here, Stevie. Give me some homers on layaway. The people love the homers. They want to know who's going yard. Field of Dreams, Stevie's favorite movie. By the way, if you're tuning in late, Stevie power ranked a little bit differently than I normally do. I usually put 5 as the worst, 1 is the best, 3 is in the middle. He is listed as his 5 favorite, which is fine. That's the way he's doing it. Oakland. I always say Oakland. It's the Athletics with San Diego and the Metropolitans up there in Field of Dreams in the best tier. The second best tier is Major League, which has the Cubs. The Astros just jumped in there as I'm doing this on the fly. For the love of the game, right there in the middle, it's St. Louis, Minnesota, Washington, Toronto. Again, Roth will be on shortly, get an update as far as a couple weather games out there. St. Louis being one of them. Sandlot, it's got Milwaukee, White Sox, Detroit, San Fran, and in the gutter, not surprisingly, the worst tier is the most popular because there are so many good pitchers taking the bump. Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Tampa, the Angels, the Mariners, and, the Marlins are comfortable because this is where they typically reside in the gutter. Stevie, 3 homers. Feel free to go up top, go down low, go in the middle, be as ambitious as you want to be. Who is going yard today?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, Soto at the top, I think, is an incredible home run play today. So if you want to spend up for one bat, I think he's the guy. So I like him a lot. And then give me Lawrence Butler from the Athletics. One of my favorite home run plays today. Again, I like the Athletics a lot. And then I'm going to stay with the Athletics and go Soderstrom at 3,300, kind of mid-tier. bonus home run, because I know you only use 3. But
Sure.
give me Gavin Sheets as a bonus home run at 2,200.
The Athletics lineup just dropped, and Butler is in there leading off. Butler, Rooker, Blade, Langoliers, Soderstrom also in there batting 6th. You got Wilson, Brown, Urias, and Muncy. That is our Athletics lineup. A lot of our lineups have not yet dropped. Let me go ahead and see. Again, we've talked about this. One of the themes, I shouldn't say theme, but conversations driving the show is weather. And looks like am I making this up? I thought Roth had Chicago yellow-orange and a little bit ago. Now it's orange-yellow. But St. Louis, no longer straight orange. It's orange-yellow as well. Roth will be on shortly to add some color, add some clarity, and give some more details when it comes to those games. But, yeah, crunch time coming on in just a minute. Stevie, give me this, Stevie, before you bring crunch time on. Your favorite stack is all things considered. Like if you have one lineup, single entry, do you know who that your dominant stack is going to be?
Athletics.
I like it. All right. Without further ado, we talked about Roth. He'll discuss some weather in just a second. We have 2-time millionaire winner, Dave Potts, best in the business. Eric Beinfort coming in as well. Let's do it. Let's bring in crunch time right now. All right, boys. Yeah, Roth, today's the first pressure day, I think, right? Maybe?
Nah, you just don't want to give me credit for all the times I got it right already this year, Dean.
Hey, how about yes? Well, a perfect game. You're not supposed to talk about a perfect game. Like, leave the pitcher alone, leave the meteorologist alone. But yeah, maybe I must have missed a slate, or there's something else going on. But you are batting 1,000, so shout out to you.
Way to jinx it. You just totally messed it up.
We got the broadcasters jinx.
Yeah, good job, Dean.
Jinxes are so not real. Like, honestly.
This is a missed free throw. Missed free throw.
I was going to say, leave it to Dean. Leave it to Dean.
Like, in another group, somebody else is saying the opposite. So, like, that's just how math works. So somebody's got to be right, and somebody's got to be jinxing it. But, yeah, we want to get some clarity as far as what Minnesota and St. Louis. Well, Minnesota and Chicago. I got to say the home city for you, obviously. Chicago and St. Louis. We'll get some clarity. I think, do we have boots on the ground, Eric? Are you in St. Louis or close enough too?
I was just outside walking the dogs, and yeah, the storm is a brewing, Dean. It is muggy as hell and really, really heavy winds. So I know Roth has that all covered. But yes, boots on the ground. You can feel it. The dogs can feel it in the air.
All right. Let's step aside and make way, because the people want to hear what Roth has to say. They want to hear what Eric has to say. They want to hear what Cheese has to say. Myself and Stevie, we overstayed our welcome here for an hour and 20 minutes. Do not go anywhere. You got 40-plus minutes at crunch time. Roth, the people want to know. They want to see if the streak continues. Will you stay perfect? Tell us what's going on weather-wise.
Yeah, thanks. I'm seeing in the chat some people are already pissed at me for something that happened yesterday. Other people are pleased. That's how it works. That's part of being a weatherman. What up? We got two of the sharpest minds in the biz. Welcome to Crunch Time. Cheese is good. Dave Potts in the house. What up, Cheese?
I feel like it's nighttime. I got up at like 5 to do the article today. And Lizzie, the dog, was like, what are we doing? Because she's got to get up. Like she's not going to stay up there without me. So, but we're here. We're kicking. Get to do some baseball and then have some lunch. It's a different but a fine order to do things.
I think there's a lot of these coming your way, by the way. I'm not sure if you've looked at the schedule, but I think this is kind of common.
Yeah, it is. It's yeah, I don't know, man. In past years, when it's this early, I would start the article the night before, so I didn't forget so early. But like I said last night, now I'm coaching this band on Tuesday nights, so I can't do my article Tuesday nights because I'm out rocking some Metallica with these kids. So it's 5 a.m. and it's great. Everything's wonderful. Hey, Eric.
We got Eric in the house. Been a minute since I've seen you, Eric. How are you, man?
It has been. I'm excited to do the show with you guys. Haven't been able to chat in a little while. There's a weather slate. My Cardinals are involved. It's a monstrous daytime slate in the middle of the week. So yeah, I'm excited. I was listening in just right before this. I agree with a lot of what those guys said. So I'm anxious to hear some of your favorite spots. A tricky one. Not
And
just weather.
I know we got to jump in real quick, but
yeah.
Eric, have we ever done a show together?
I think like maybe once, like 5 years ago or something.
It was like pre-COVID. It's been a while.
Yeah,
so anyway,
yeah, I think so.
This is wonderful.
Yes.
Before we do the weather report, Dean wants to know what Metallica song are the kids working on with Cheese? A little Enter Sandman?
Yeah, it's Enter Sandman because the drummer already knew it.
Okay.
And it's
That
kind of
helps.
hard to get those going.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, I would like, once they perform, I want to see that eventually. We need to see, like, how's your teaching? FanDuel, I believe, locks in 20 minutes, so we don't have a whole lot of time to run through things. But we got to start talking about weather. There are 2 games where if you don't want weather risk, just don't play. Every other game looks great. That seems to me like a lot of games you could choose from without weather risk. We got a late start announced in Chicago. It's going to rain most of the afternoon in Chicago. It might clear 4 or 5 o'clock Central Time. That's a long ass late start, right? You're talking 2+ hours, maybe 3+ hours of a late start. So that is not a safe game. They did mention that they plan on playing the game. I think they probably will just make it a late afternoon game, but it is not a safe play. The other game is in St. Louis, where Eric mentioned it's not just like, oh, there's some rain, severe weather potential in St. Louis. But right now, the storms that have popped are going to miss St. Louis to the north. So you've got probably a couple of hours, 2-3 hours before storms start moving into that direction. Assuming the game is roughly an hour from now, that gives us maybe 2 hours to play, maybe 2 hours before it really starts increasing. So my concern in St. Louis essentially is, will they get a full game in? And I don't know. And I don't feel highly confident that they will. So if you're okay with maybe it goes 6 or 7 innings, okay. But if you want a full game and you don't want any risk, don't play from those 2. Is that fair, guys? Weather-wise, that's the best I've got.
My one question with that, so with what you're saying with the Twins, White Sox, if they wait and they do play, are pitchers then probably fine?
Yeah, there's a few little pop-ups, but models have been trending down on that. So I think if they play that game, they're not going to be dumb enough to let a rain delay get them. So I do think pitchers are going to be okay. There's also some massive winds. There's some big temperature differences. It's 90 degrees in Tampa today. Great hitting weather, especially when you compare it to, Chicago, where it's in the 50s, Oakland's in the 50s, San Diego's in the 50s, Baltimore's in the 50s, Philly is right at 50, New York is in the 40s. So find those spots, and maybe it's only Tampa, where you've got the heat, because hot air is thin air and the ball flies. And if there are good hitters there that you want, it's a good spot to focus in on.
Kevin, you got to touch the ball to make it fly, and that's Paul Skeens.
Oh, is it Skeens there?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then we're just going to be racking up the Ks, and it doesn't matter, I guess. That works well. That's what I've got for weather for now. I'm going to monitor things. One last note: if they announce a late start in St. Louis, I'm full out on that game, because my theory is you've got a little time before it gets ugly. If they late start and you lose that time, you're probably screwed, and they're probably not going to play.
So, hey, before we start, let me say that this is what I think we should do. FanDuel split up into 2 slates, and essentially we can't talk about FanDuel and all that, but we can at least mention the one game that starts before the DK slate. So I think we should mention that one game and then just talk in terms of DK and let people sort out their own FanDuel slate since they split it up.
Yeah, that sounds good. So let's talk about that one game. Is it in Cincinnati, right?
Yeah, it's the Rangers and the Reds. And what I would say in that game is you could make the case that the Reds are the best offense on the slate. In fact, I think I would make that case. So I would go, especially given that the weather risk games are on that early FanDuel slate too, or at least the St. Louis one. I would go heavy Reds. And I would also not be afraid to play 1 or 2 Rangers bats against Green. You can stack against them too if you're MMEing for sure, but like you're pretty much fishing for a home run or 2. But I think Leiter is the worst pitcher on that early slate. It's in Cincinnati. I would load up Reds if you're playing the very early FanDuel.
Yeah. Eric, you got anything to add in that first game before we move into the whole deal?
No, nothing special to add other than I think the Reds are just like almost always a viable stack, and you get them in a good spot against, like Cheese said, maybe the worst pitcher, one of for sure the worst pitchers in that ballpark. They run like crazy. So it's not just like chasing home runs against lighter, I mean, Ellie De La Cruz, McLean, all these guys will steal bases. So you just have like infinite upside. They were probably the team I played the most last year, just as a total team stack. So they would also be my favorite today. Also, we would be remiss if we didn't say Ellie came out and said he tried out the old torpedo bat the other day and hit 2 home runs. So I think, these other teams are catching on quite quickly, and you get the power and the speed and a great matchup. The Reds seem awesome to me.
Okay.
This whole thing is so fascinating. We're about a day or less away from when everyone with the torpedo bat just gets pitched so far inside that they can't torpedo
Yep.
it. And it's going to be such a weird game that we're all playing.
It's the tush push. It's the tush push of baseball, man. It's all the drama.
But I think just glancing at it, it seems easier to stop than the tush push.
Yeah.
If you got good control.
Yeah. Yes.
I was curious for your takes on the torpedo bat, but maybe now is not the time because we got a lot of content to get to
next
here.
time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's dive into the main slate. DK, Eric, you get to lead us off talking about pitchers there on DraftKings. You need 2 of them, and apparently Skeens is on the slate, so I'm thinking he might be one of them.
This is both the easiest and the most difficult part of the slate, I think, because the pitching slate is loaded. We're still at the beginning part of the season where kind of all the best pitchers are aligned on the same days outside of the Jack Lighters, and Miami barely has a good pitcher right there. So there's a few exceptions. So that makes it a little more difficult, but also easier to get off the beaten path at pitcher, because let's just throw out the weather games, which we've already discussed, which I do particularly like. Maybe 3 of those pitchers. You could maybe even technically make a tournament case for all 4 if you really wanted to in those games. But even if we throw those out, the hitting weather is great that you mentioned for Skeens and Pepio. So that is another reason to get away from 2 of the maybe chalkier pitchers on that slate. Cole Ragans was not great in the opener and had a little bit of a rough spring, but he's probably, when we factor price, matchup, and ownership, my favorite tournament pitcher. I mean, Skeens, I don't think you can ever really go wrong with Skeens and Pepio in that game for me. But I think Ragans really stands out from a tournament perspective because we got a really, really good price on, what proved to be kind of an elite pitcher for the last couple of seasons because of a rough early outing and some soft pricing at the beginning. And so I'm kind of leaning into maybe more of this mid-tier of ownership pitchers just because I don't have that many bats I even really want to play. But there's like 10 pitchers you could play today.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, Cheese, some of your favorites here as you are kind of building things on DraftKings with 2 pitchers.
Yeah, similar thoughts. Like you can play at least 12 pitchers, and I wouldn't argue with any order at all you want to put them in. I really wouldn't. And because of that, the ownership will be kind of spread out. I mean, Skeens will be the chalk like we're showing, but it's not like someone's going to be 70% owned today because there's so many great pitchers. Kind of like in the same vein as what Eric's saying with Ragans, my favorite pitcher by far is Dylan Cease when factored in the ownership. He's got Skeens Skubal upside at probably a fraction of the ownership. And then we got the guys in better matchups with Castillo and Pablo Lopez. I have a pretty fair amount of. I do like using one of the cheaper guys, cheaper being Ryan Pepio, Clay Holmes, Jeffrey Springs, Mackenzie Gore. And Ragans is just slightly more than that group because that allows you to get those few big bats that we're going to talk about. So most of my lineups have one of those guys under 8K with one of the top, mostly Skeens, Skubal, and Cease. But I'm spread out more than usual at pitcher, as I think everyone's going to be.
Yeah. All right. Well, then we get to flip it and talk about some of the.
Can I toss one more thing in, Roth?
Please do.
So I was coming on here expecting to say, as I'm walking out in this St. Louis weather, that it's a non-starter for those guys. And then as you've kind of discussed it, that if maybe let's just say, Ray, we can get 2 or 2.5 hours in with no delay. Both of the starting pitchers in that game, I think, are pretty intriguing, and they are not going to be owned at all, given this weather and the strength of this pitching slate. The Cardinals have been pretty good on offense so far, to the surprise of any Cardinals fan or baseball prognosticator.
Or human.
Yeah, it doesn't really. I mean, Lars Nootbaar is the second coming of Barry Bonds so far this year, I guess. But I don't believe in the sustainability of this offense at all. And Kikuchi has a ton of strikeout upside. Cardinals have, I believe, 3 lefties in the lineup, and Mason Wynn is like an auto K right now. He might as well be So I think that, the Angels outside of Trout are quite terrible. So I think both of those pitchers, like maybe more Lotto, you're like, oh, I'm willing to burn this $3, $4, $15 on that team. But I think they're both, if the weather was better, they would be pretty darn viable plays, but we're just not going to play them because of it.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. Well, let's talk about some of the bats and some of the stacks. Cheese, you get to lead us off in that department. Our pitchers are all spread out. Are bats all spread out as well? Or are you kind of honing things in there?
Essentially, we've got like 2/3 of the slate are great pitchers, and then the other third, like those are the teams you can play against the few bad pitchers. The one team that's chalk, that's very obvious, is the Mets. Like that's the one team you have to concern yourself with ownership. And I think it's not close that they're the top team, and I am what I think will be over the field on them. But still, I'm not like locking in the Mets. That's not how you play DFS. So, and apparently we just got to line up. Siri and Torrens are out. That shouldn't ruin your day. You just might have to change some things. And we have a couple hours before the start of that one. After the Mets, I'm going Oakland, San Diego, Washington, and Minnesota, which is essentially what I think the field is doing as well. Like there's nothing sneaky about any of this, but that's enough teams that, given that the Mets are the chalk, nothing else can really be the chalk. I do think Butler and Blade are going to get more ownership than I wish they would get. But other than that, you just play whatever you want.
Geez, how are you getting different from the field? It seems like you're kind of spread out at pitcher. You're kind of spread out at stacks. Are you just going to come in with equal ownership and it's going to be a wash? Like, what's your plan?
Essentially, in anything that's not a Met stack, I'm not even thinking about it. So I just think it's so spread out. I think you'd be overthinking to say, oh, this guy's 18% on this guy's 12, when it could be 15 to 14. So the Mets are the only place I'm worried about it.
Okay, good stuff. Eric, what are you doing stack wise? I saw you nodding in agreement there with Cheese's thoughts.
He nailed it. I have some like semi-small concerns with like non-Juan Soto Mets. Lindor is amazing, but I know it's early, and I know spring training doesn't really matter over the large sample, but I do tend to care a little bit at the beginning of the season if ownership is ignoring guys who are really struggling, right? I just mentioned Mason Wynn. Like I think I could make contact before Mason Wynn could right now for the Cardinals. Like if he were to be popular, I don't want to play into this guy who, sure, today could be the day, right, that he breaks out of this slump. But also, I don't want to play into ownership and bet on that. And so the Mets have a couple of guys, the Lindors. I'm not sure Winker. It might be over for Jesse Winker. Like Juan Soto is the most terrifying fade ever, but it's Marlins Park. Like take a couple walks, right? It's like sometimes Soto and Trout can be those guys that you are terrified every time they walk to the plate in a good matchup as chalk. But Juan Soto's pretty content to like take 3 walks, and pass the torch on down to the next guy. So I love, they're my favorite stack, setting aside the Reds, the Mets are, but in tournaments, I'm really in on this Padres team right now. So I think they would probably be my favorite. They're running a little bit more. Fernando Tatis, even after game 1 or over the weekend, said something about like, he stole a couple bases and they asked him about it. And he's like, well, yeah, I'm healthy now. You can see what I can do when I can actually run, right? When my body's not hurting. And so Manny Machado is stealing bases. Like it doesn't look pretty, but he's getting the job done. Gavin Sheets is, speaking of Lars Nootbaar, Gavin Sheets and Lars Nootbaar competing for the MVP alongside Judge, apparently so far. I think that they're in a really, really good spot, and they're kind of a sneaky high upside offense with a little bit more speed than we expected. So if I'm stacking ownership of Mets versus Padres, I lean a little bit more towards the Padres. And I also agree with the A's would be kind of filling out my top 3 on the DK slate.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds fair. Guys, we got to go around the horn, talk position by position. By the way, I'm seeing we've got a whole lot of people watching and not a whole lot of people hitting that thumbs up. It's free content from 2 of the sharpest minds in the biz and the only weatherman in the industry. So hit that thumbs up for us. We'd appreciate it. Like and subscribe. And hopefully we can keep the show free for you. Let's talk about what we're doing position by position. Eric, you get to start us off at the catcher spot. And again, we're kind of focusing on DraftKings here, I suppose. But if there's something you want to point out on FanDuel, go for it.
I don't want to play any of these catchers on DraftKings, so I definitely don't want to play them on FanDuel.
FanDuel where you don't have to.
Yeah, it is a pretty disgusting catcher slate. I didn't want to play Luis Torrens, but we somehow got a Mets catcher who's even worse than Luis Torrens. If you like to do let's include the catcher in my stack. To me, who stands out the absolute most is Shea Langoliers in that Athletics lineup. Hit a home run last night.
Eric, stop. We're going to stop you right here. Repeat after me when you're on Crunch Time with Kevin Roth. Langoliers. Repeat after me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Langoliers.
It's French.
I like
only on Crunch Time. It's French. I don't know why.
So Shea. Shea, we're going to call him Shea here from not a very catcher name, by the way. Shea Longe, however you say it. That's not the most catcher name. Certainly it doesn't fit him for this like burly dude who swings for the fences every single time. But that's kind of the perk, right? Jameson Taillon has kind of lost his ability to get swings and misses. That's still going to be, and projects better against right-handed bats and still a little bit more of a ground ball pitcher. But if you're not going to make the A's overall, but Shea swing and miss, then that's the kind of guy that can break the slate at a catcher position that, man, is really, really rough, especially when we potentially remove a couple of weather games. Keibert Ruiz, I also would shout out. Cheese mentioned the Nationals. We haven't talked really anything about the specifics of the Nationals, but probably my second favorite option. Both tournaments, he might be a cash game option. I'm not sure. I don't play cash games, but in one of, if not the best matchup outside of kind of the Mets and an actual competent hitting catcher with the platoon advantage, in a decent park. So those would be my top two guys.
Good stuff. Cheese, what do we do in a catcher? I did see someone say Mets catcher 2K. I don't know who that is, but if we're punting, maybe a decent option.
Yeah, I think it would be totally fine to just punt in cash if you're playing cash. Like, spend your money somewhere else because this is not a good position. Yeah, definitely the Frenchman is the play at the catcher position. I am playing a little bit of William Contreras against Reagans. I don't like the Brewers really, but Contreras is just plain old good. And Reagans will give up a little power even if he's pitching fantastic. And kind of the same thing with Sal Perez against Peralta. Like, that's a game where both pitchers could strike out 8 or 9 guys but give up 2 homers. So I don't mind those two guys. And also Keibert Ruiz, like Eric said.
Okay. Let's go to first base. Cheese, you get to lead us off there.
Yeah, pretty much other than the outfield, nothing's great today. First base is a little thin as well. Pete Alonso is the very obvious best play by a lot. Vlad is expensive, and we didn't really talk about Mackenzie Gore, a pitcher who came out and struck out 132 batters in his first start. We don't know if Mackenzie Gore is going to hit some new level this year, which is possible based on his pedigree, or if, he just had a good start and he's the same pretty good pitcher as always. I'm a little wary of doing too much with the Blue Jays against him, but because of how thin first base is, yeah, play some Vlad, but I prefer Alonso. Other than that, it's cheap. Like Tyler Soderstrom and Luken Baker, if you're okay with that St. Louis game, just go cheap and hope you catch a home run.
Yeah. Okay. Eric, first base.
Yeah. I would have liked Luken Baker. And like you said, if you're okay with that one, I think he makes for kind of similar to the catcher thing, punt it off and go get your superstars, go get Soto, go get Tatis, go get Lindor, whoever. I think first base makes a ton of sense there. And so I'm probably, in terms of my favorite tournament option, sliding up just the tick to Tyler Soderstrom. It's kind of the same thing as our French catcher. That's like, he's going to strike out a lot, and it's going to be ugly sometimes, but that's not what Taillon does. And Soderstrom has monster power, like huge power. And so for a cheap price at first base in one of the better matchups of the day, he's probably my favorite. Kind of move up a little bit from the bottom, but don't go all the way up to the Vlads of the world. I do like Vlad probably as a spend up again in tournaments, maybe over Alonso. You could play 5 other Mets, or 4 other Mets other than Alonso, and use Vlad as a pivot. I am a big Mackenzie Gore believer, but the Phillies are doing this thing where they put 6 lefties in the lineup against left-handed pitching. And part of me wonders if there isn't something a little bit fluke-like. The lefties that have faced the Phillies have just dominated them, much worse pitchers than Mackenzie Gore. So I'm wondering, exactly how real that is. I think he's a good pitcher. I'm not sure he's what we saw. So maybe there is a little bit of something with a Vlad or someone to get some leverage on some ownership disparity that shouldn't be there just because of the one big game.
Wait, just
I
to
need
be
to-
clear, they're putting lefties in against a lefty
They don't
pitcher?
have right-handed bat
okay.
options.
All right,
So
that
there's
explains it.
Harper, Schwarber, Kepler, Marsh, Stott. So what's that? That's at least 5 lefties that they're playing in their lineup.
No matter what,
against-
and then they're just
yeah.
getting mowed down.
And they
Okay.
they're getting crushed. So
Yeah.
Trey Turner's maybe not as good. I just think it's one of those matchups I'm really monitoring here early in the season. Again, maybe Gore is just that good, but I'm genuinely concerned about the Phillies against left-handed pitching.
Okay, interesting stuff. Jeez.
Let me point out one thing. Yeah, so if you're looking at our ownership projections, we have the ownership projections as if there's no weather concern in St. Louis. So I think bump Alonso and Vlad way up in ownership because we've got all that ownership on Contreras, and I think because of the weather, that's not going to be a thing. So I wouldn't be thinking you're getting Alonso or Vlad at an ownership discount.
That's a good note. All right. Where are we? Eric, is it your turn for second base?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Another kind of like Cheese said, I'm excited to get to the outfield to where I can talk about somebody that I'm like genuinely excited for. It's kind of similar to the catcher position for me, where kind of what I'm stacking, what I'm, how I'm constructing my lineup. There isn't like anybody that just jumps off the screen. So if you want to include one of these guys in your stack, if you are doing the Gore thing, right? Davis Schneider again, like punted off with the super cheap second baseman that fits your stack. No one loves seeing Ahmed Rosario as the highest owned second baseman on a slate. So I would love to stray a little bit away from there, but there really aren't a lot of great options. I mentioned that San Diego is my favorite stack. So Jake Cronenworth, even though he's showing closer to the top of your screen here, he's probably my favorite guy. He's like this weird blend of enough power, like will steal enough bases, gets on base, and just hits in the heart of a really good Padres order that I think I would coin him my favorite tournament option.
Okay, good stuff. Cheese, your thoughts at second base, please.
I love Cronenworth. Just as a play and with the salary, I have him by far my highest owned. I also have a lot of Willie Castro. Again, that is one of the weather games. I'm kind of just playing it like that game's going to play.
Which weather game is it? Just out of curiosity.
That's the Twins White Sox game.
Yeah. Okay.
No
notes. I was just curious which one you were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe we're still waiting on a Washington lineup. But if Ahmed Rosario is in the middle of the lineup, he's another good cheap option.
Okay, that brings us to third. Cheese.
Yeah, it's kind of like first. Like it's okay, but not really for this size slate. Machado's at the top for me, and Mark Vientos. Those are the only 2 guys I really like. Same thing with the ownership. We're given non-weather risk ownership to Arenado. I bring that down, give some more to Vientos and Machado, basically. And the cheap stuff is pretty bad. So you're just punting and hoping you get a point. It would be Paul DeJong for me if he's in the lineup. And that's kind of all I have to say.
Okay. I was just looking at radar in St. Louis, and it still looks pretty good. I think we've got at least 2 hours before there's any rain, and that would get you at least halfway through the game before I'm even concerned, right? So I think if we see rain, it would be in the later innings, 7th, 8th, 9th would be when that concern level really starts to ramp up. Just to be clear there, if you're considering pitchers, you would very likely get a full run. And if you want hitters, I think you'll get at least most of a game, if not a full game there before trouble starts moving in. All right, Eric, your thoughts at third base, please.
This is really even more disgusting than I thought it was, these first few positions. I am also with Cheese. I think Vientos and Machado, clear standouts, but that's not anything that is profound. They will likely be the 2 highest owned pitchers. I was actually curious. We haven't talked anything about the Astros, and I don't know enough about Landon Rout, however you say his last name, from the Giants. I mean, I can look at a Fangraphs base like everybody else can, and kind of some of the strikeout stuff and stuff, if you will, in the minors looks pretty good to me. But at
Cheese, real quick. Cheese, do you have any thoughts on this guy? I know you follow kind of minor league baseball.
Yeah, I mean, it's just simply the Astros against a righty who's good against righties is just a terrible match. Like this, I feel like the Astros have intentionally made themselves a beatable team. Like, I don't know how they're going to score more than 1 run in any game against a team like the Mariners. Like, they have 1 lefty, and he's amazing, and then 8 righties, only one of whom is actually really good. And I don't think Roop is great. He may not even be good, but he's probably pretty good against righties, and that's all they are. It's a bunch of righties.
Yeah. Okay, Eric.
It's kind of what I figured. They stood out, like I was talking about with the Phillies, where when you get a left-handed pitcher against that team, they really struggle. That's what the Astros have looked like to me. Jordan can't buy a hit so far either. He looks a little Devers-y to start the season.
How dare you? That is like the worst thing you can say to a person.
Yeah, exactly. I hope you didn't hear me. But yeah, third is rough. I think you can like really get funky if you want it, because these are also, in my opinion, Machado stands out with my Padres, but Vientos is like a good hitter, but like he's going to be so popular just because there's nothing at third and the Mets are I would like to like, try to just, find a totally chaotic off the wall home run here. I'm not sure that Holmes for the Mets is some guy that we should like totally fear. And now I don't really want to play the Marlins either, but punting it off with one of these cheap Marlins at third base. It's Jonah Bride and what's the other fella's name? I'm forgetting. It's terrible that I don't remember every Miami Marlin starter. Is it Pauly? Is Graham Pauly?
Graham Pauly. Yeah.
I mean, they're both terrible, but we're talking about a lot of terrible hitters here at these positions. So I think third is a spot where I'm pretty interested in getting a little off the beaten path and just like trying to find a home run. It would be a good spot for, like Cheese said, like going after a Hunter Green on the FanDuel slate. I know that's passed, but doing something like that, like try target a Cole Reagans, target a Grant Holmes, one of these guys with, you're not excited about the bat you're putting in there, but I'm trying to find a low owned guy at this spot because the position is just really, really brutal.
And I would also say, like, ideally that low owned guy would be Jose Ramirez against a good pitcher, but that's a really tough spot to spend almost $6,000.
Right. You have to forego one, the Sotos of the, I know you can play both of them, but like you have to cut a bat somewhere else to find him. And maybe now you're punting at catcher, and it's a weird roster construction thing.
And why play Jose Ramirez when you can play Graham Pauly?
Exactly. Many people are saying this.
Yeah. Eric, what are you doing at shortstop?
A little bit more fun at shortstop. Obviously Lindor looks good, but I mentioned I have some small like concerns again with, I do really like the Mets. I promise I'm not like saying all negative things about the Mets, but I kind of like some of the funkier pieces. We didn't talk about Brett Beatty at second base. I should have mentioned him. I think that he's, intriguing. Play some of those guys in your Mets stack is a little fun to me. And then, Freddie Peralta is great, but he showed some real warts down the stretch last year. And anytime I can get Bobby Witt, I know he's again projecting higher, but he'll be lower than Francisco Lindor, and that feels pretty good. The Bo Bichette thing against Mackenzie Gore, trying to kind of test out and see if that is real at all. And then Bogarts in the Padres stack looks awesome. And then I'm forgetting the also the Wilson. Is it Jacob Wilson? I'm not good with the first names for all these guys.
Jacob Wilson. Yeah,
he's not in the line. Yeah, he is. He's up to 6th, hitting 6th now. Started the year hitting 9th. 2,600 on DraftKings. And again, he's in that Tyone matchup. He's a really young shortstop, but he's a pretty good prospect with some power, with a little bit of speed. And so give me that like totally unowned guy, right? And that you can go get, Vlad, or go get, William Contreras or something like that by spending down at this one when everyone else is going to spend up.
Good stuff. Cheese, your thoughts at short, please.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly like Lindor, but I do prefer Bobby Witt and even CJ Abrams at lower ownership. Not low ownership, but lower. If I'm not playing a Met stack, give me Witt or Abrams. Carlos Correa is a little pricey, but I do like the Twins. Otherwise, yeah, it's the same thought. Like these guys aren't good. So if you're getting someone who's not good, just go really cheap with like Jacob Wilson or some nonsense. Hope you get something. I do think it's viable-ish to play Willy Adames and or Matt Chapman back at third against Valdez. Every once in a while, the one thing about Valdez is if he gets unlucky, he can blow up in his own mind and just kind of fall apart. It doesn't happen often, and I don't think it'll happen, but I did leave those guys in the pool.
Yeah. Okay. Then that brings us to the outfield. Cheese, what are we doing there?
So Juan Soto is a pretty good play. Moving on. Yeah, like he's a way better play than the other guys who are like 6K-ish. Like Kyle Tucker against a good lefty. Sure, you can play him, but you're getting pretty goofy not to just play Soto there. As much as I like Alvarez, I think the most likely case is he gets walked 4 times and the rest of the team just gets out. Like, I don't love him, even though it's a great matchup. It's really a great matchup in that he's the guy who almost certainly gets on base. If he gets a pitch to hit, sure, but I don't love it. I'd rather play Tatis. I would rather play Jackson Merrill. I would rather play either Rooker or Butler. Those are my spend up guys that I prefer. Mid tier, Brandon Nimmo, of course, with all the Mets. I like Dylan Cruz, assuming he's near the top of the lineup. I like Matt Wallner, if you're okay with that game. JJ Bleday for the salary is probably my favorite outfielder on the slate. I am a little hesitant on Jesse Winker chalk. Sure, play him in Met stacks. And I have a little just because he is cheap and he makes things work, but I'm not going out of my way to play Jesse Winker. If I can spend up more than that, I'm absolutely going to. I think I like Gavin Sheets better as the punt if you need a one-off. I'll stop there. It's pretty endless. The outfield is good, but those are the standouts for me.
Eric, some of your favorites in the outfield?
Yeah, we could have spent the whole show probably on the outfield. Like every team, even like Cheese mentioned, even the teams that are in not so great spots have like their superstar. Like Kyle Tucker is an outfielder that you could, I don't really want to play him over Soto and Tatis, but if you came to me and said, I'm going to play, 5 of the best hitters in baseball, they're just in bad matchups, like a Tucker. I mean, he's speaking of the MVP case. I mean, nobody's off to a hotter start than Kyle Tucker is.
Who would be way better off with Kyle Tucker? The Astros. if only.
Yeah.
All right, carry on.
They're missing this really, really good left-handed bat that you could use an outfielder. Yeah, I wonder where that guy went. Jackson Merrill to me is a guy that I've been chasing so far this year. The breakout rookie campaign, and I think just about everything about it is real. So we get this great spot for the Padres. He's not going to be like low, but I would actually be even a little surprised if he gets up into, what is that, 5th? We have him as the 5th highest owned outfielder. I just think when you start to put lineups together, like if you do Soto and Nimmo, it's like you probably want your third guy to be a punt. If you do Soto and Tatis, you want your next guy to be a punt. So maybe he's paired with Tatis or with Sheets a lot, and maybe you stray away from something like that. But Merrill is just this, superstar young player that I don't think, I'm not even sure 5,100 is going to be the right price for him later in the season, especially if they're running like this. They're hitting for power. He's hitting right in the middle of that lineup. Sheets is my favorite punt. He can hit. Like, this is fluky exactly how crazy hot he is to start the year, but he can hit right-handed pitching. He can't hit a lefty to save his life, but luckily for us, we don't have to deal with that today. I believe Cleveland only has 1 lefty available in the pen today, so you kind of cross your fingers and hope that guy doesn't come in when Sheets is in there. So I think we can get a full game out of him, and I don't mind chasing. I mentioned I don't like chasing the poor spring, poor early start with guys who are popular. Well, Jordan's not going to be popular, and he might be the best, hitter against right-handed pitching in all of baseball. If I can get that guy at low ownership, and this is the day, right? He breaks out against the rookie. But after Cheese's analysis, I don't want any of the other Astros, but I think Jordan is at least notable. And then, the A's guys. You just get Lawrence Butler, also probably going to fall just a little bit through the crack because he's real expensive. You have to forego one of the superstars to get him. I think people opt for Bleday instead of him.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff, guys. We want to make sure we answer some questions as well. I think we've got a lot coming up in 13, 14 minutes, something like that. In the meantime, if in case you are unaware, our MLB DFS annual price is $425. That's for 6 months of MLB. But because we're nice, we dropped the price of our Combo Pro product to match that. So you can get all the sports now for $425. That's great. Also, if you sign up and just do 6 months as opposed to going month by month, you're saving about 35%. So make sure you're doing that. MLB projections, NBA content, PGA data, and anything you could ask for, we've got it. So make sure you check it out. Let's see. How about some home run calls? Been a minute since we've done that. Eric, I would like to, Cheese's favorite part of the show. He loathes it. I don't know why.
Home runs for
Hates-
leverage. Yeah.
Hates giving up. Hates talking about leverage. Hates giving up, giving home run calls. My boy Eugenio Suarez just blasted him. Lock him in for another one. Eric, who do you have?
Is Suarez on the Profar supplement diet or something? What's going on here? He's getting,
I don't know.
he's getting better. He's
The
better
thought
now.
crossed my mind.
He's
Yeah.
much better now at 34 years old or whatever than he has ever been. I will mention my guy Tyler Soderstrom, the power bat against a guy who can't strike out. Left-handed bats and Jackson Merrill for the Padres.
Okay, Cheese.
I hate this already enough, and then I'm going to do this super sneaky Jackson Merrill for the high-end guy. It's unbelievable. Fine, Juan Soto. I mean, what are we doing? For the cheap stuff, we'll say that they play and Luke and Baker hits one. And then how about a mid-tier-ish of JJ Bleday?
Okay. Let's get to some questions. Let's see. Yeah, we got time here. Let's pop open the old Discord and see what we've got. Here we go. A question from the Grinch in the RotoGrinders Discord. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up. Let me give you a quick weather update, too. It is still absolutely pouring in Chicago. It'll clear briefly in about an hour, and then more rain moves in. I hope they're not going to be dumb enough to try to start it when it clears, because there is more rain arriving after that. In St. Louis, they've got all kinds of severe thunderstorm watch and high risk, but there's nothing immediately threatening, right? We still have, I would say, 2 hours before I'm even really worried about rain arriving. So I think you get at least half a game and probably more than that in St. Louis. Now on to the questions. The Grinch says, Cheese, who do you think has more pinch hit risk, Winker or Taylor?
Definitely Winker, because Taylor is already in as a righty against a righty. So if I wouldn't be that worried, but if Winker, if they bring in a lefty, Winker could turn into Siri at some point. Not the person you talk to on the phone, but the batter.
Yeah. Okay.
But actually, wait, pause. Yeah. Well, not pause. They only have one lefty in the Marlins bullpen, and I don't think he's very good. So I really wouldn't even worry about it. But to answer the question, Winker.
Okay. Let's see what we've got in the old chat. Chris says Rooker? Question mark. There was no other context added. Just Rooker? Question mark.
Yeah, we didn't even get to the outfield so strong that we didn't even get to him. But he's another like mega upside power bat who you would much prefer a pitcher who gets strikeouts, and Jameson Taillon does not do that. So I mean, on the scale of not owned. Amongst all those, like Jackson Merrill is going to be much higher owned than Brent Rooker. Like all the other Oakland outfielders are going to be much higher owned than Brent Rooker because they have the platoon advantage. So I think he's as good of a tournament play as there is.
Okay, great. We'll go to Anthony's question, and Eric, I'm coming right back to you. Cease or Skubal? Who do you prefer?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm actually going to go Skubal. The strikeout matchup for both are not very good, but my gosh, this Seattle offense is just putrid. And Skubal, I would put Skubal maybe just, somebody asked earlier, ranking like the top pitchers in baseball. I think I'd put Skubal just a tick above Cease. So give me the slightly better pitcher, slightly better matchup in Skubal.
Okay, good stuff. Cheese, I'm coming to you from Devin in the YouTube chat. DK small field tournament, Pepio or Gore? I feel like was Gore maybe more of the GPP play, and Pepio was a little chalkier.
Yeah, I slightly lean Pepio. Just the matchup is considerably better for Pepio, and we still like Eric kind of talked about. Like we just don't know if Gore is in fact a new guy or just the same guy as last year who had a good first game. So I lean Pepio, but it's close.
Cheese, what is the cheapest pitcher you would use? This is a good question. Always, I love this question. Who is the cheapest pitcher you would use in a GPP, Cheese?
Clay Holmes.
And what's his price?
$7K. So Clay Holmes is 7, Pepio is 7.2.
And
I'm basically using those two guys.
Yeah.
And I have a couple liners with the two of them.
Okay. Ooh, release the hounds, Cheese. I like that. Let's see. Eric got a few for you here. Is Kyle Tucker sneaky?
He's definitely sneaky, but I think he's as good as he is tough to play, kind of like Cheese outlined before. Outfield is just, it's hard to reiterate how good outfield is, that even as good as Kyle Tucker is, Jeffrey Springs is very good, like a very good pitcher with the platoon advantage. He's sneaky. So yes, is the answer to that question. Is he sneaky enough that I care? I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay. Good notes. Let's see. Eric, thoughts on Jay's stacks? He says, I like Vladdy to homer.
Yeah, we talked just a tick about that earlier. I don't love the Jays lineup, to be totally honest. It would probably be more of like mini stacks playing kind of their good hitters. I think Vlad is completely viable at first base. A full Jays stack, I'm not sure that it may. I'm not like an MME guy. So, if you're playing 150, don't listen to me. But if you're, a 3 max type guy like I am, I don't think the Jays make the cut.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Cheese, we got a few for you here. Valdez. This is from Christian in the YouTube. Valdez and Gray or Peralta and Pepio?
Peralta and Pepio. I don't love Peralta, but he's okay.
All right. Cheese, going back to the RotoGrinders Discord where the cool kids hang out. We've got a 3v3 for you in a DKGPP. It is Holmes, Cronenworth, and Winker, or Gore, Rosario, Taylor.
I like the Holmes, Cronenworth, Winker side.
Okay. Eric, coming back to you with a question from Yappy, the mayor of the RotoGrinders Discord. I'm getting a lot of Oakland and Met stacks besides San Diego. Who would be your preferred 4 to 5 man stack?
Ooh, we knocked off all the good ones. So no San Diego, Oakland, or Mets.
I think that's what I'm understanding from this question is who is a stack outside of those 3 that you like?
Let's see. I'm gonna go Washington. It stinks that most of their best bats are left-handed against the lefty, but I'm not sure how long Easton Lucas is going to be in the game on the road. Young, exciting players. I'll go Washington.
Okay. Love this question. Well, let's see here. We'll do this one real quick, Eric. FanDuel tournament outfield, Butler or Blade?
Butler.
Okay. Tech9 says, Dear Cheese, which is such a wonderful way to start the question. Dear Cheese, is leaving 2K on the table too much in a large field GPP?
The vast majority of the time, the answer is no. Today, I don't think I have 2K, so I would have to see the lineup. And like my best guess is there's a spot you should probably upgrade. In general, I almost never mind leaving that much, but I don't know. Personally, I didn't get that high today, so I would peek around and just see if there's not one spot that needs to be adjusted.
Okay. Cheese, right back to you. It is nope. These aren't questions. Here we go. I'm getting a lot of Oakland. Oh nope, we did that one as well. Cheese, is it worth fading the Mets on DK?
I mean, absolutely. In smaller field, single entry type stuff, yeah, for sure.
Okay. Eric TKO says Butler or Merrill and DK Cash. It's my last piece. Thank you.
Butler or Merrill? Give me Merrill.
Okay. And then I assume that's probably Merrill he's asking. Joseph says Tatis, Merrily, or Rooker. We'll assume Merrily is Merrill.
Is that for me?
Yeah, sure.
Oh,
Tatis, Merrill, or Rooker.
Not Rooker. So between the two Padres guys, I think we had Merrill just a tick lower owned, but I think Tatis is a slightly better play, but I'm going to opt for Merrill if I get just a small discount on ownership.
Okay. I'm hearing from producer Steve Yappy is not the mayor of RotoGrinders Discord. I thought he was.
He came in with that quick. He didn't even give it a second. Yeah. This was not an okay thing to say.
I don't know the political drama that happened behind the scenes for the mayor, but something went down. Yappy is no longer the mayor. He was removed from mayordom. Cheese, late night question. Who's the top pitcher between Snell, Gallen, Rodon, and Elder?
It's Snell. I mean, obviously there's risk. And for the record, I prefer Crochet over Snell. But but out of those names mentioned, I would say Snell.
Wow. So he said, who's the top pitcher? Listed 4 dudes and did not pick your top pitcher.
Well, no, I think he made the top pitcher is Zach Wheeler. So I think he was excluding the obvious top pitcher and may have been excluding Crochet. So yeah,
Okay.
like I'm sure whoever asked that knows that Wheeler's the top pitcher and was needing somebody other than him.
I got you. Okay. Cheese Maryi Don Yeezy says last spot in the outfield. By the way, guys, we've got less than 2 minutes until lock. Last spot in the outfield, stacking the A's and the Mets. You want Taylor or Seth Brown?
Seth.
DK Cash, can you play Zach McKinstry, Matten, and Baker all together, or is that too many punts, Eric? McKinstry, Matten, and Baker all together, or am I punting too much?
I think you can. I don't think, given what you've outlined and my nice walk around the block earlier, that I would play Luke and Baker in cash. But I think, like Cheese said before, you can punt a couple of positions, load up on your outfielders and pitchers in cash, and that's totally fine.
Yeah. Okay. Holmes and Scooball okay in DK Cash, or should I double pay up, Eric, and go Skeens and Scooball?
I think you want to pay down at one of the spots in cash because there's just too many of these good expensive bats that you're going to want, and the cheap pitchers are pretty good. They can come close enough to the studs.
Yeah. Okay. Less than a minute until lock. Still getting some questions in. Pepio, Cheese, or Holmes? Put a little pep.
Very slightly into Pepio. Yeah.
A little
but I do
pep
like
in
them
your
both.
step, boys. Pepio and Gore in cash, and give me all the bats, Cheese.
No, I think you need. I would simply do one ace and one cheap. Like I would get up to Skeens or at least like Castillo level in cash.
Okay. Oh, was that a cash question?
Yeah.
Oh, it was. It was.
In a tournament, sure, go double cheap.
Okay. Any Riley Green love, Eric? Any Riley Green love from Jungle King?
I don't hate the couple Riley Green, Kerry Carpenter. I would stick with that with the Tigers. But I don't hate them. They have power. Luis Castillo isn't quite the same pitcher that he was once upon a time. So yeah, I don't mind either Carpenter or Green as kind of Tigers one-off outfielders.
In general,
1%.
life rule: don't ever argue with Jungle King. Like just say yes, sir. And
yeah, it's not going to end well. What are you going to get in a fight with him? You don't want that. Cheese, we got one question here from Steven. Hey, I'm glad to have you guys back. Can I play Karl Anthony Towns at first? He's very tall, and that could help.
I was under the impression that he was hurt or something.
Yeah.
So,
I think he was. I think he was out last game.
So
he was.
Yeah, he's probably out.
Did he sit out so he could play some first base
That might be it.
for the Twins tonight?
Yeah.
Or I guess he's on the Yankees or the Mets.
Mystery solved. All right, with that, gentlemen, we're going to bounce on out of here. I've got another show later today. Cheese, are you on it or no? You're a one a day.
No, I think it'll just be an NBA thing.
Oh, okay.
Cheese needs a nap, brother.
Yeah,
for
Some
sure.
lunch, a little nap, a little ice cream. We're going to bounce on out of here. Good stuff, as always. So for Cheese, for Eric, for our wonderful production crew, always working hard behind the scenes. Guys, we appreciate you. We love you, and we will catch you tomorrow, later today. You have been crunched.